This is the Troll Patrol, live with Justin Freakin.
Welcome to the Troll Patrol live. Good morning. It's a Friday morning. Smokey's pissed at me because he's still in bed. Like, why did you get up? We were so comfy. Girl of the Gray, Princess Kimberly. Did I say good morning? Or did I say good evening? I'm so used to saying good evening. We are here live for Trump sentencing in his hush money case in New York. Unfortunately, he is not going to be in the courtroom. He is going to appear via a video chat. So, not even going to be in New York for this. We're not going to get to witness him taking in the protesters outside of the courtroom, which I have a live shot of right now. Well, I'm sorry, AP has moved inside the courthouse. They've got their camera pointed at some doors, and I don't even know why. Because Trump is not going to be there. He is in Mar-a-Lago this morning. Cool thing for us is that, since it's the morning, we get to watch C-SPAN calls. That's what we're going to do until we get word that Trump has actually been sentenced in Manhattan in the hush money case. Go ahead, we'll flip it over to C-SPAN right now and get some calls going on.
But all of them are super uber liberal Democrats, and all liberal Democrats hate Donald Trump. That's why Alvin Bragg's case, that's why he got convicted, not on the merits.
All right.
Any decent person would hate Donald Trump.
Yeah, I do think it's important to remember the very serious charges that were brought against the people who attacked the Capitol and attacked the peaceful transfer of power on January 6th. We're talking about charges of seditious conspiracy. We're talking about charges of assaulting police officers, law enforcement. So, what happened on January 6th was a very serious attack on our democracy, and we've seen that reflected in the charges that have been brought and the convictions that have been obtained against other people, people other than Donald Trump who participated in the events of January.
This is Elizabeth Wydra.
We will go to John in Florence, Massachusetts, independent.
Yeah, hallelujah to what the last guy said. That's absolutely a joke. Yeah, nobody was charged with insurrection, so you can stop saying that. That's a fool's thing to say. Why was the election official not allowed to testify about federal elections and how it wasn't a federal election violation? That's reversible error. Play that part where John Malcolm talked about that. Why was he not charged for a federal election crime? That's weird. That doesn't make any sense. How are the felonies? How are the misdemeanors upgraded to felonies to make them relevant still? That's
what?
Reversible error, and you could play that part where John Malcolm said that. And why wasn't Biden charged for his documents case? They said he was a well-meaning, demented, retarded, deadhead retard. He's so stupid. So figure that out, and you can keep trying that. Thanks a lot.
But
Elizabeth Wydro, respond to his citing of what John Malcolm had to say during our previous interview.
Well, there's a big difference between the way in which the classified documents were handled in the instances of Donald Trump and Joe Biden. President Biden cooperated with the investigation into whether or not he had inadvertently retained classified documents, and they did find some classified documents. They returned those when they were asked. That is in substantial contrast to the way that President Trump, with the very serious, as your caller mentioned earlier, very serious classified documents that deal with vital matters of national security, not only did they deny that they had those documents, they tried to thwart the search for those documents. They refused to turn them over after they had been asked to return them to the National Archives. So there is a big difference in the way in which there was a response to the retaining of classified documents. It happens. sometimes even the most well-meaning people can keep documents that they didn't realize they had in their private possession. But the way that one reacts to being asked about those documents and being asked to return them, I think is very telling. And I think that is a substantial difference in why President Trump's case ended in criminal charges and President Biden's did not.
Going back to January 6th, Monday was
Maynard yelled at me from somewhere. I don't even see him.
Capitol Hill. President-elect Donald Trump signaling again that a possibility of offering pardons to supporters who participated. I want to show what the president-elect had to say and get your reaction to that.
More than 140 police officers were injured by rioters on January 6th. Will you pardon anyone who attacked a police officer?
Well, you know, the only one that was killed was a beautiful young lady named Ashley Babbitt. She was killed, and there was actually somebody else that was killed, also a MAGA person, but people...
The dude that tased himself in the balls.
Credibility. I'm going to find out about it. We're going to find out. But Ashley Babbitt was killed. She was shot. Should have never been shot. She was shot.
She should have never been breaching the Capitol.
In fact, they say that she was trying to hold back the crowd. And the
bullshit
was made up of a lot of different people, so we'll see. But I will tell you this, the person that was killed was Ashley Babbitt. The other thing is, when they talk, you know, there was never charges of insurrection or anything like that. But if there were, this would be the only insurrection in history where people went in as insurrectionists with not one gun. Okay,
that's wrong.
Have a lot of guns in their home for hunting and for shooting and for entertainment, a lot of good reasons. But there wasn't.
Not only was there a plan to get a weapons cache to the Capitol.
Elizabeth, what are your reaction to the president-elect?
But I'm sure insurrections have happened without guns.
Yeah, so, you know, first there were other people who died as a result of January 6th. Officer Brian Sicknick, for example, and some of the charges to people who were present on January 6th related to Officer Sicknick's death from strokes that were caused from, being sprayed with toxic chemicals, for example, by some of the January 6th rioters. And I think it's important to remember the seriousness of the charges and, the potential deadly violence that could have occurred on January 6th, if not for the brave efforts of our law enforcement officers. There was a report.
She is the president of the Constitutional Accountability
for
Center.
America and Public Citizen that highlights some of the individuals that could be pardoned if President Trump decides to do a blanket pardon for all the January 6th.
And she has a very nice house.
And so I encourage listeners to check that out if they want to look more at some of the individuals involved in the January 6th riot. And so, or insurrection. I think it's absolutely appropriate to call it that, even though obviously some of your callers...
Nobody's been charged with insurrection. Over a dozen people were convicted of seditious conspiracy.
Trump's pardon power, it's a very broad constitutional pardon power to issue blanket pardons or individual pardons to people who participated in January 6th. I think whether it's good for America is obviously a different question. Certainly he has the constitutional authority to do it, but whether that sends a positive message about the sanctity of the ballot box and the importance of ensuring the peaceful transfer of power, I think is something altogether different. Now, of course, given that there, as we saw from the evidence from the January 6th committee in Congress and from Jack Smith's case brought against Donald Trump for January 6th, there certainly are allegations that President Trump supported, allegedly incited that action. So it's not terribly surprising that he would want
not allegedly
who he allegedly called to action.
Sharon in Dade City, Florida, Democratic call.
Allegedly.
Next.
Hi, I'd like to thank Ms. Wydra for coming on and giving us the facts, which are vitally important right now. And I'd like to make two comments and then ask her a question. It's pretty evident from this last election that our forefathers didn't anticipate.
What did her cup say?
Public would put their own greed and fears ahead of what's best for the country and elect a convicted felon. So, I'd like to ask her, like, what can we do in the
One says, live, laugh, Lucifer.
precedent now being set?
My steamy coffee there.
Anybody with a criminal past can run for president and get elected because of people's fears and greed. So what does the future look like? That's my question. Thank you for taking my call.
I think that's a really important point that the caller makes, which is that the Constitution lays out lots of different structures, institutions, procedures, rights, but ultimately it's up to the American people to be the holders of the flame of American democracy. And there are lots of ways in which
that's why we're doomed.
The direction, the Constitution puts out a map, it puts out certain guardrails, but the Constitution is a document that I think to Frederick Douglass, who was a great interpreter of the Constitution, who talked about how the Constitution has been used as a tool for oppression, and in that particular instance he was talking about the institution of slavery, but it also could be a document that could be wielded for emancipation, that could be wielded for freedom and liberation. And a lot of that depends on the ways in which the American people choose their leaders in our constitutional Republican democracy. And so it is really up to all of us to engage in each generation with the Constitution. And we've had before us generations of activists, abolitionists, who worked to make the Constitution through the amendment process a document that is more inclusive, that is more egalitarian, that is more just. And it's up to all of us to make good on the promises in the Constitution and to vote for people who will manifest that promise of the Constitution.
And that's why we're fucked.
I think the founders envisioned that there would be people who would try to seek power in the United States who might use it for corrupt means. And they did put a lot of anti-corruption measures in the Constitution. But ultimately, the accountability and the decision for who will lead the United States comes down to the people. And so it's really our responsibility to educate ourselves about the Constitution, its values, its promises, and to educate.
Good luck with that.
And the candidates who are running for election. And, it's important from the state and local level all the way up to the office of the presidency, and to carry on that constitutional obligation that we have.
Leah in New York, Republican. Good morning.
Hi, I want to address the hush money debacle. Michael Cohen said he'll say anything not to go to jail, admitted President Trump knew nothing about the payment. The sham jury trial was meant to confuse the jurors' verdict. And that $130,000 hush money payment over a decade ago cost taxpayers millions in phony charges. And lastly, the government is using taxpayer money to hush sexual allegations against congressmen impeachment requirements to this day. Thank you.
Huh?
Elizabeth Weider, your reaction?
Yeah, look, it was hush money payments that were alleged to have been in the service of keeping information from the American people that could have been vital to their votes in the presidential election. And a jury of everyday New Yorkers decided that the evidence that was presented met the criminal standard and convicted Donald Trump, just like lots of other people in the United States and other New Yorkers get held accountable for their actions. So, if she'd been on the jury, I'm sure she would have voted differently, but that's the way that the jury in this case voted according to the evidence presented.
Probably not if she actually heard the evidence.
The president of the Constitutional Accountability
and came to the table in good faith.
To court before over violations of the Foreign Emoluments Clause. Explain why you pursued those cases and the clause.
Yes. So as I mentioned a few moments ago, the drafters of the Constitution did envision that there could be people who would rise to power in the United States, including the office of the presidency, who could seek to use their office for corrupt means to enrich themselves. And one of the things that they were particularly concerned about is that this type of corruption could come from foreign governments, which could obviously compromise the national security of the United States and could cause an elected leader to act in the interests of a foreign government to get profit or other emoluments from a foreign government that would compromise the American people's public interest. And so the emoluments clause, foreign emoluments clause, prevents an officer from taking these types of profits, money, honorary titles, for example, or gifts from foreign governments, unless they first lay before Congress the foreign emolument that they would like to receive and keep, and Congress approves it. So, I think it's important to note that President Trump, if he continues to get profits from his businesses that involve foreign governments, he could go to Congress and say, I plan to do this. And particularly since Congress is now controlled by his party, presumably if it was not compromising the American people's public interest, they might approve those. But the fact that he previously did not even go through that process as outlined by the Constitution is a clear constitutional violation. And so we at the Constitutional
EBDB, good morning.
The largest number of members of Congress to come together to say that they wanted their right to vote on these foreign emoluments to be respected and enforced, and the Constitution to be honored in this really important anti-corruption principle that the founders of our country wrote into the Constitution. We'll see whether he continues to ignore the foreign emoluments clause in his second term, but certainly we are going to be watching.
Of course he will.
That
in my best Chank voice. Of course.
Constitution is respected by all officers with responsibility in our federal government.
You can learn more about the Constitutional Accountability Center if you go to the usconstitution.org or on X at MyConstitution. Elizabeth Wydra, thank you very much for the conversation this morning.
As if MAGAs give a shit about the Constitution.
We'll take a short break. When we come back, continue with a conversation with all of you about
Love Greta.
the New York hush money case, the sentencing hearing happening in...
The flattery gets you nowhere with Greta.
Right back.
You guys were with me the time I called in and tried to glaze Greta. She was having none of it. She was all business. This is a live look at the Manhattan courtroom where a historic sentencing is going to take place here. I believe around 10 o'clock. I had a hard time finding the exact time that this would take place. No party time for Greta. No titty slap for Greta either.
A titty slap! Come on now.
Wearing a wig? Why would I be wearing a wig? Nope. All me. All my hair. Looks wild this morning, I'm sure. I did attempt to brush it when I got up. It was very difficult to get my ass out of bed, as Smokey was very much cuddled up with me. He's still over there in the same spot. He hasn't moved. He's like, it's too cold to be up moving around already.
I know. And we're showing it earlier, like the red zone.
So that is the scene outside of the courtroom. Sky Comet, good morning. We'll go back to C-SPAN for C-SPAN calls here in a second. I do want to take you to Atlanta, where the snowstorm that we have been watching is materializing this morning, heading its way to the East Coast.
police. And Buck, what I really want to know is, what does the winner get?
The joy of
you
winning.
guys need to start thinking about that.
Accolades on Good Day Atlanta. I'll tell you right now.
Bragging rights.
You're probably the leader in the clubhouse, but Brooke, who is from Wisconsin,
she's a close
don't
second.
count her out.
She's at your heels.
Don't count her out.
I wouldn't.
You're looking good.
No.
You're looking good.
She sounded like she had some tricks up her sleeve. She said she had been working on it. Don't worry about it. She's got it covered.
She has tricks up her sleeve.
I'm a little concerned.
I know.
Tricks up her sleeve, and she has multiple layers, so that's a lot of sleeves when you think about it. Yeah.
Angelique, thank you so much for that.
Democracy
We appreciate it.
in real.
Our time is 9:27. We have much more ahead for you this morning here on Good Day Atlanta as we are tracking the winter storm. Stay with us.
Already hitting Atlanta, heading east. Yeah, that was a creepy-looking snowman. I'm amazed that Atlanta is already covered like that, and I have not. I looked out the window and did not see any flurries yet. As Atlanta about as east as I am, maybe I'm a little bit further east, but quite a bit north of Atlanta. Doxing myself here on stream. Somewhat. Go back to Washington Journal and Greta.
The three liberal judges, along with the Chief Justice and Amy Coney Barrett, who was nominated to
Yes, Barrett.
President-elect Donald Trump.
Joining the liberals, kind of surprising.
Wrote the following. First, the alleged evidentiary violations at President-elect Trump's state court trial can be addressed in the ordinary course on appeal. Second, the burden that sentencing will impose on the president-elect's responsibilities is
Nothing has happened yet, PB girl. Welcome in.
substantial.
The East Coast getting ready to get a historic snowstorm.
Impose a sentence of unconditional.
Yes, Guy comment about 12/1 is when it's supposed to hit here.
Unconditional discharge. That means
Which is weird because I'm
jail time,
further east than Cincinnati.
probation. We're getting your reaction to this morning. Jimmy in Irvine, Pennsylvania, Republican. Hi, Jimmy.
How are you?
Morning.
Good morning. I just want to say that I wish Elizabeth was still on because she must be either a DEI hire.
Oh my God!
George Soros. Let me explain. I'm just a street guy, but you're going to tell me that all these illegals. Does she know that it is a felony to cross into our border? It's a felony. It's not a misdemeanor. And getting back to what she said about the President Biden, he had classified material in a garage with a $6 lock on it. They wouldn't put him in jail because, as the prosecutor said, his mind is gone and they wouldn't convict him. And then the whole crux of her thing is this. I don't want to be disrespectful. She's a lady of the night. She's a $20 hooker.
What?
Only the Democrats put her up. You're going to worry about paying some woman off. Gretchen, this country is so fouled up. And as far as the insurrection, when that Elizabeth said that, they were sprayed.
Gretchen? I thought her name was Greta.
The Army exposed to Agent Orange. Never got a penny. I was glad to serve my country. That's why I hope Ramaswamy and Elon Musk get rid of these left-wing nuts.
All right, Jimmy, I'm going to leave it there so we can stick to the topic here this morning. George in Missouri.
Mr. Elwood, good evening. Good morning.
Hush money case moving forward to the
Princess Gabrielle.
President-elect saying he will appeal.
Yes, I can't understand what's going on. The Constitution of the United States, this guy was a convicted felon, and now he's a convicted felon for the and I can't. My in-laws and people in Normandy would turn over in their graves if they knew something like this was going on. Having a convicted felon as a president of the United States.
That praises Hitler.
All these other countries are laughing at us.
George,
they're complete.
George, it's interesting. He was convicted by a jury of his peers on 34 counts. We learned earlier from John Malcolm, because of a New York law, he's not actually convicted until the sentencing hearing takes place today at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time.
Yes, I understand that, and I hope that these people that voted for this man.
Yeah, that's a weird thing since he's already been
that now
convicted.
A convicted felon as of 9:30 today.
It's weird that it's got to
President,
take the sentencing. Apparently, Trump is ready to speak.
The Judge Merchant, had to say about why.
Oh, maybe this is
with the sentencing.
B-roll.
The jury heard evidence for nearly 7 weeks and pronounced its verdict. Defendant and the people were given every opportunity to address intervening decisions, to exhaust every possible motion in support.
Well, the dude was talking about his buddies in Normandy, so he could have been very, very old.
In what is an unprecedented and likely never to be repeated legal scenario. This court must sentence defendant within a reasonable time following verdict, and defendant must be permitted to avail himself of every available appeal, a path he has made clear he intends to pursue, but which only becomes fully available upon sentencing. Terry in Stamford, Connecticut, Democratic caller. Good morning to you, Terry.
Yeah, hi. My question is, should the appeal process wait until after the term of the president is over, due to his power over the court and the judges? I mean, because if he's appealing as the president, I think all the judges would be sort of like afraid to rule against him.
Okay. Terry's suggestion there. Joseph, Point Pleasant Beach, New Jersey, Republican. Hi there, Joseph.
Hey, Greta, how are you?
Morning.
Good morning. I just can I make 2 comments, and then I want to ask you specifically a question, if I'm allowed to. I'll be quick, all right?
All right.
The people on this
he's allowed to
show, they just calling up saying that Trump is a convicted felon. That's why the Democrats are doing this. They want to have that talking point. And it's just that laws were changed just to convict him. Laws were changed, or the Brad case.
Nope.
Stormy Daniels. This is, and then you had the woman on before, your guest, saying that January 6th there was no peaceful transition of power. When Trump was elected last time, there was no peaceful. They tried to get him from the first day in the office with the rushing. They were spying on him. And I just wanted to ask you a question. She brought up the emoluments clause. I just want, as your report, I've listened to you. I don't know which way you lean, right or left. I don't know. I like listening to you. But when the guest before mentioned Trump making money as a president, why didn't you think in the back of your head that President Biden and Hunter Biden were making money, and you didn't push back on that? Hunter Biden is making money illegally off of his name, and he's getting away with it. And she didn't bring that up. Trump has done nothing wrong in making money from other countries. He's never been accused of that. I just want to know why you didn't.
What?
Okay, Joseph. Well, thank you for that feedback. We were at the end of our segment with her. It's something that her group pursued during the first Trump administration. I was asking her about it at the end of the interview, but you're right. Something I could have brought up about the allegations against Hunter Biden. Kurt in
Why? Hunter Biden's not a member of government. Donnie Trump is. He's making money off of foreign governments.
To you. I was an original Trump supporter with his first run until I got about a third of the way through his presidency, and I could learn what he was all about. Now, he's been legally elected to run again, although he is a convicted felon. He's up for sentencing today. What I think they ought to do is, since things can be run electronically, remotely these days, I think they ought to find a very nice, large cell in a federal prison, let him sit in the cell, let him run the government from the cell. And that would give me some satisfaction that to ease the angst I've had over the last several years with this guy who is a liar, a criminal, and
oh shit, Curious are already here.
Have a clue how to run any kind of government.
Kurt's
but
thoughts.
That would be my suggestion.
All right, Kurt's thoughts there in South Carolina. Eddie in Huntington, New York, Republican.
Yes, good morning. The issue I have with this whole case is originally the Federal Elections Commission didn't want to take it. The attorney in the Southern District of New York didn't want it. Cy Vance didn't want it. And actually Bragg didn't want it initially. And then all of a sudden this guy Colangelo, the number 2 or 3 man in the Justice Department, comes down here to do the case. Also, if you listen to people like Alan Dershowitz, who said he never voted for Trump, but he looked at this case and he still can't figure out what the charges are. And they also said that there are at least 26 reversible decisions that this judge made. His daughter was making a lot of money off the case. The judge donated to Biden's campaign. So I think the whole process of bringing this to court should have been questioned. Obviously, it's too late for that, and hopefully on appeal, if it works, it works. But I just find it very ironic that this whole process started 2 years after he decided to run for office instead of.
I'm trying to protect the identity
happen.
Okay.
of my guest at the moment.
Earlier, we spoke with John Malcolm of the Heritage Foundation. He was making similar arguments to what you just had to say.
Oh, Heritage Foundation. That makes sense.
You can go to our website, cspan.org, and find it there. We just spoke to Elizabeth Wydra, who argued on the other side of this. She's the president of the Constitutional Accountability Center. And if you're interested in hearing her arguments, you can find it all on cspan.org. Trina in Bryan, Texas, a Republican. Trina.
I don't think that.
Yes. Hello. Am I on?
You are.
Most of what I was going to say has already been said.
I don't think you can be a Republican.
Your guest that was on said that
and acknowledge facts.
The biggest crime was that he hid evidence prior to an election from the American people. Wasn't that the same thing that Biden did? Prior to the 2020 election by saying the Hunter laptop wasn't Hunter's and it was Russian misinformation, and he didn't talk to the Chinese. He didn't talk to any of Hunter's business partners. He hid all of that, and of course it's all coming out. It was true. So, and she also said that a president can be tried after he's out of office. So, I mean, isn't that going to happen? I mean, if we have equal justice, isn't Biden going to be in trouble for what he did prior to the 2020 election, hiding evidence from the American people? Just seems, they always say, well, justice is, no one's above the law. Well, it looks to me like there might be a case there for what Biden did prior to the 2020 election. A lot of people said, had I known about the laptop story, I would have not voted for Biden. So it seems to me like there's going to be a case here for the other side. If that's truly what your guest said, his biggest crime was. He hid it from the American people.
All right.
Anyway.
Trina in Texas, Republican caller, sharing her thoughts with us. An update for all of you in the national newspapers on the wildfires burning in the Los Angeles area. Front page of the Wall Street Journal this morning. More than 10,000 structures have burned. Officials fear the death toll will rise as well. Inside the Wall Street Journal this morning, let me show you what they have to say on the cost of this. Damage costs are likely to set a record is the headline there. And the Campfire 2018 burn in California cost $12.5 billion, and according to estimates in other newspapers, this fire that is still burning in Los Angeles could be a lot more. According to JP Morgan Chase, it could exceed $20 billion, and some experts putting that price tag even higher. A Wall Street Journal editorial today, California's fire insurance catastrophe, and they write insurers had already scrapped hundreds of thousands of policies and limited coverage in wildfire-prone areas. Democrats blame climate change, which has become an all-purpose excuse for any disaster relief failure. But the real insurance problem is that state regulators have barred insurers from charging premiums that fully reflect risks and costs. California is the only state that heretofore hasn't allowed insurers to incorporate the cost of reinsurance in premiums. As a result, insurers are paying out $1.09 in expenses and claims for every dollar they collect in premiums. This is financially unsustainable, which is why many have paired coverage in areas at high fire risk with expensive homes. State Farm dropped nearly 70% of its policyholders in one Pacific Palisades neighborhood where the average home price is $3.5 million. That's the Wall Street Journal editorial board with their opinion today. Sandy in Minneapolis, independent caller. Sandy, we're talking about this hush money case and the sentencing that will go forth today. Go ahead, Sandy. Good morning.
Morning. All I can say is you've got to be kidding me. I can't wait till January 20th when all this harassment will be over and the country can continue to survive.
Okay, Sandy, and just a note that we've also learned that this is the scene outside of the courtroom. As we've told you, this proceeding getting underway at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. We're past that point now, so we do not have cameras in the courtroom. They're not allowed, and as many of you who've been tracking this case, you know that already. But this is the pool camera that's outside of the courtroom in New York.
Curiouser is sitting just off a camera.
Good morning to you, Josie. Go ahead.
Oh my God, she made an appearance.
Two brief things. I believe
I was not expecting that at all.
Japan donated $15 to the Democratic Party. And compare that to the
Curiouser face reveal that I was not expecting.
That Elon Musk donated to Trump last summer. But the other thing is that Trump was still paying off Stormy Daniels in the summer of 2017. As he wrote checks and signed them.
As you guys know, last night I was out. Curiouser bringing me a
While he was president, he was still paying her off.
present this morning. Ironic.
Or something, so it wouldn't be as detected. But I don't know that that was presidential official acts of paying off a mistress. I don't know.
All right, Josie. Josie's thoughts there in Florida. I also want to let you know about the latest numbers on the economy. This is from the New York Times, but it's in many of the newspapers. U.S. job growth ends the year strong. Employers finished the year with a burst of hiring, adding 256,000 jobs in December. The unemployment rate ticked down to 4.1% in December of 2024.
Curiouser, welcome in. Had no clue that you would be popping on.
Good morning to you, Sean.
Good morning. I think for myself, the biggest issue of this trial is I think it speaks to a lack of faith in the judicial system as a whole. I think it really highlights just the gross power that the presidential pardon happens because, but for the presidential pardon, I don't think this trial would have been thrown out as easily. And then likewise, President Biden being able to give a blanket pardon for any Hunter Biden felonies has also highlighted just how gross of a power overreach the presidential pardon is. And it's turned a lot of trials like this one into a farce that lead to people believing less in the judicial system.
All right. In the New York Times this morning, updating on the proceedings that are happening in the Manhattan court this morning. Maggie Haberman reporting from inside the courtroom. The president-elect is now in a familiar pose, his arms crossed in defiance. He shakes his head again as Joshua Steinglass, the prosecutor, says that the once and future president has made clear he has disdain for the rule of law. That coming inside the courtroom in Manhattan. There it is on your screen. Those are the doors outside of the courtroom, the hallway there.
Light one up, tip one back. I'm glad to say this for the first time in a while.
Tammy and Cleveland.
I mean, it's not the first time I've said it in a while, but it's the first time I've been able to partake in a while.
Tammy in Cleveland, Ohio, Democratic caller. Let's hear from you. All right. Porter in Indiana, Republican. Hi, Porter.
Hello.
Morning.
Hi. When Elizabeth was on that last paragraph that she was put out there, it reminded me of Biden, all the corruption and everything that she was saying that Trump could possibly do. It reminded me of what Biden has already done, and nothing's being done to him. I hope that he's held accountable after he's out of office. As far as Trump,
Greta is a fucking saint.
That it was a kangaroo court, so we don't even consider that court as their verdict as guilty on felonies. We don't even look at it that way. Maybe the Democrats do, but thank you very much.
Okay, all right, Porter. Clay in Mississippi, Republican caller. Clay, what are your thoughts on this hush money case, the sentencing hearing that's taking place right now in New York?
Well, thank you for taking my call. Good morning.
Morning.
I just wanted to point out that this is actually still an obstruction of, President Trump being able to do his job. The purpose for the Constitution is to try to prevent putting an undue burden on an elected president while he's in office. And if they do their sentencing, which I think their window of opportunity is pretty much past for them to do that, so that it wouldn't be a burden, then what they're doing now is going to force him to possibly, and he may not do it, but to be able to have to appeal something, because it puts a burden.
Yeah, Clay, you're breaking up. The president-elect said yesterday, last evening, when he was reacting to the Supreme Court's decision to not stop this hearing, that he does plan to appeal. Also, from New York Times reporters in the courtroom, the heart of the sentencing when it began, this is from one of the reporters, that the president-elect was told that he will be allowed to address the court if he wishes. But first, it was Joshua Steinglass, one of the prosecutors, who started to speak first. Steinglass says then that the prosecutors agreed with the expected sentence of unconditional discharge. That means there would be no fine, no jail time, no probation. And the prosecutors agreed with that. And that taking place when this hearing began this morning. Let's go to Dayton, Oregon, independent caller Benji. Your turn.
Oh, hi, Greta. Thanks. A couple things. One, most of us don't buy into the New York Manhattan kangaroo court. Obviously, I think it was a setup. We think the Supreme Court ruled correctly to let the sentencing go through because it's not going to be a big deal. It's going to be overturned on appeal because of the 10 reasons, the mistake.
Justin, good morning.
The other comment I wanted to make was I was disappointed that Elizabeth was absolutely the worst presenter you've ever had on, and I was disappointed you didn't push back on her more on the emoluments clause and Joe Biden and Hunter Biden with the China and the Russia-Ukraine money, and with the Hunter Biden laptop hiding. There's a lot of stuff to push back on her. And has she ever sued Joe Biden for the emoluments clause, I was wondering?
Benji, what evidence would you point to that the president himself benefited from Hunter Biden's business dealings?
Well, most of the information on the laptop, identifying him as a big guy and that he kept 10 to 20% of each sale that Hunter made on his name.
All right. Benji there in Dayton, Oregon, independent caller. Let's go to Ricardo in Warrenton, Pennsylvania, Democratic caller. Your turn.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
I find it very strange that the Republicans can't concede that the Republican controlled.
Sorry, guys, I haven't seen Curiouser since like before Christmas, so
one scintilla of
yeah, we've had shit to discuss.
Yet they still throw Joe Biden's name in.
They can't hear you.
Criminal things that didn't happen, when right in front of their eyes, Donald Trump has.
I can give you a lavalier, Mike. You want?
After crime.
Want me to mic you up?
But what do they say? They say, "Oh, it's a kangaroo court. Oh, it's the Democrats just going after the Republicans." Did we forget that the Democratic senator in New Jersey was convicted? Did we forget that Joe Biden's son himself was convicted? Yes, he was pardoned, just like Manafort was pardoned, just like Steve Bannon was pardoned, just.
Oh, caller, apologies. We lost you mid-thought there. Terry in Boone, Iowa, independent. Terry?
Yeah. Hello. How you doing, Greta?
Morning.
I'd like to mention that this is all about the swaying the election, is all about the hush money, is what the payments were made for and why they were trying to hide it and everything. Well, if that's the case, the several callers for the last few times been talking about Hunter Biden laptop, and Nobody mentioned the 51 intel agents that said that it wasn't real. Nobody mentioned the media that kept saying it wasn't real. Nobody mentioned you, C-SPAN, you, Greta, that kept going on and on and on and denying that this is even existing. To this day, you have not come forward, you or C-SPAN or any journalist, and said, hey, we were wrong. You sit there every day, and every time somebody mentions Hunter laptop, you run away from it. You should have seen yourself. Go back and watch this recording of yourself and see what you did. Thank you.
Okay, Terry. Terry in Boone, Iowa there. We are watching this Manhattan court house in New York. The media, the cameras are outside of the courtroom. That's the shot on your screen. There are reporters in the courtroom watching these proceedings take place. The president-elect not there, but he is appearing virtually to hear from the judge in this case. We'll go to California. Francis is there, a Republican. Hello, good morning.
Hello, this is Francisco Magana, Visalia.
We're listening to you. Go ahead.
Yes, Greta, you should be fighting for. You shouldn't be politics on both of them. You should be for everybody, but you always agree with the Democrats. I see you all the time always agree with Democrats, not with the Republican or, you know what I mean? I don't understand that. Why do you do that? You know what I mean? That's not fair.
How am I agreeing?
You know what I mean? You agree with when Democrats are with Joe Biden and all this, and then you always pull up Trump's mistakes or not even.
That is we are talking about the dick nose emote. Whose emote is that, Byronic?
He's never been convicted. They're gonna get sentenced, but he's not convicted, so you can't put that he's convicted.
I mentioned that very thing just a little bit ago. Perry, a Montgomery, Alabama Democratic caller. Hi, Perry.
Good morning. Good morning, C-SPAN and C-SPAN audience. Thank you for taking my call.
Brunette girl, right?
I keep hearing these Republicans be talking about this.
Super cute, super nice. I think I've hung out in her chat before.
If you're African American, the justice system been unfair for years in this country. So should we not say the same thing that if African Americans go to court, that it's unfair for this country? These people that judging these folks, because we know they had been biased before. So if Donald Trump cannot get a fair trial in this country, how can an African American get a fair trial?
All right. The president-elect's sentencing hearing underway in New York. Patrick in New Hampshire, Republican. Patrick, what do you think of all this?
I think I want to give you a big thank you, Greta, because what I'm watching on the screen right now of the court, this is what got Donald Trump elected and got us this next 4 years. And I want to thank you personally, Greta, because you as a Democrat pushed and pushed and pushed and said, look at this trial. He's guilty. He's going to get in trouble. He's going to be a felon. And then guess what?
A host sitting in this chair, we didn't say that. I didn't say that. People didn't say that he was going to get in trouble. Look at this case. That was not said.
You just said like 5 minutes ago, somebody said about Hunter Biden, then he said, where's the evidence? Can you tell me where the evidence is that Joe Biden took any money?
Yes, I asked that question because he made that claim. I was asking him what the evidence was. If he was going to prosecute, what would be the evidence?
But it's like, that's what I'm saying with this case. You guys all said he's a felon. He's going to be a felon. This is going to crash him in the election. And it didn't. The American people saw the
That was never said by a host sitting in this chair. Dave in Las Vegas, Independent.
First of all, I want to
Somebody sum that up. What did I miss?
For those guys that were saying...
Greta, put him down.
They're ignorant. All the Republicans are just... The ones that back Trump are ignorant. This guy is a felon, a rapist, got people killed, tried to overthrow our government. What's wrong with these people? They are so messed up. You got to have evidence, and They like Trump. The guy's the biggest racist. He doesn't want to fix anything. He's going to ruin this country. It's not make America.
I don't know about the biggest racist.
He's make America hate again. He'll
All
take
right,
away
Dave's
everything.
thoughts there in Nevada. Lynette, Charlotte, North Carolina Independent. Lynette?
Hi there. I think what we, the American people, need to really be thinking about is how we balance the principles of accountability with the political implications of sentencing a sitting president and what this means. We see world leaders all the time get away with things, and from the outside, that just looks like there's no accountability. And here we have an actual opportunity for once to have accountability. And he is our leader. I accept that. We voted for him. We elected him. So now we need to move forward and decide what now from here. Do we have accountability or not?
Julie in Belleville, Michigan, an independent. Julie, tell us what you think of this sentencing hearing happening right now in New York.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call. You know, one of the things that really bothers me about this whole process is the breakdown of the
Merlin, good morning.
to the degree that
Yes, M. Lord. It's beautiful. It's fantastic.
onus of the American public to decide whether Trump is guilty or not guilty by virtue of an election. The judicial system it really fell down on the job, in my opinion. And I don't think it's right that the election was what decided, in essence, Trump's accountability or his whether or not he is a criminal, basically. I'm really upset with the judicial system, and it's going to get worse under Trump. He's going to place people in positions of power that should not be there simply out of loyalty to him. And I think he needs to be sentenced. I think there needs to be a fine. There needs to be a punishment. There needs to be accountability. I think the rest of the world is wondering what the heck is happening here in America.
All right, Julie, and none of those things will happen. The judges said that there will be no fines, no probation, and no jail time. This is from the Associated Press. The president-elect appearing virtually inside this courtroom today. The proceedings underway in New York. Michelle in Louisiana, Democratic caller.
Yes, hello. Thanks for taking my call. I heard that he's not going to be able to sell any alcohol in any of his golf courses, being a convict, a felon, basically.
Where did you hear that?
I've heard it a lot of times, and he was going to sell all of his clubs to his son, and they were like, no, you're absolutely not going to be able to do that.
All right. Rachel in New York City, Independent. Rachel?
Hi, everybody. I'm calling. I'm a government information librarian, a nonpartisan, and I provide people information. So I'm coming from a wonky place. What's frustrating is that we're talking about what-if-ism. These allegations are very serious. They undermine our democracy as the most fundamental way. And I really hope that it doesn't matter where we are politically. Do we have accountability? Do our elections matter? Whatever side you're on, there is not the
program. Oh, it's 10 o'clock. That was abrupt. Damn, C-SPAN. This keeps happening to us. Yeah, this is the... This is back... I was on there... Well, I don't think C-SPAN knows that streamers exist, really. Do you think Greta knows what Twitch is? Yes. Yeah.
Trump says.
Do you think anybody at my TV station knew anything about the internet? I mean, that's
like the defacing.
Look at how they post on Facebook. I mean, like they're boomers. They're.
What live blog are you on?
What do you guys think? Do you think C-SPAN is? I mean, they're aware that a thing like streaming exists. They don't know that it's as prevalent or as like they don't know who Hassan is on C-SPAN. Ponder Monkey, good morning. Has Hassan been on C-SPAN?
Move on it. They called it lawfare. I'd just like to explain I was treated very, very unfairly.
He has been on big things, but like
I'm
C-SPAN specifically is what I'm thinking about.
So that's that. He had what he had to say. Rashad's going to pass sentence, and that's that.
I love that my pirated site doesn't have C-SPAN for Washington Journal. What hell? No. Oh yeah, eat your cinnamon roll. I didn't know you were. I did not know you were waiting on me to eat a cinnamon roll. Oh, okay. Oh my God, you gotta. I mean, that is like the best. That's the best bakery on the planet. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No. I don't know. Saying it's the best bakery on the planet might dox me. But then again, like everybody thinks the bakery they get there. she's wanting me to do like a reaction to the. Well, come over here and hold it up to my.
Everyone's sending me the application. Like, I don't have like internet or something.
No, they're encouraging you to do it.
I will do it.
Get it done.
I know.
I mean, I've never had their cinnamon rolls. So when I worked at the radio station at my college, one of the girls that was in the class under me, or two classes under me, or whatever, in the like the broadcasting department, she was dating my pot dealer.
By noon and in bed by.
And so she actually had the shift on the radio before, like, because the classes had to like do their like. It was very structured. They had to come on and talk for 1 minute, blah, 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 blah. And then I had the freak show at 8 o'clock on a Friday. I'm telling them the story. She had the shift before the freak shows, like 7 to 8 o'clock on a Friday. And she worked at Blackbird Bakery, and she would leave me shit when I came in for the freak show all the time. Oh my God, it was amazing.
Nearing an end.
The department actually got on to me. They were like, you left blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I left Blackbird Bakery for everybody. What? God damn it. I was like, how can you be mad that I left? I was like, this is like the best bread and shit on the planet. Like, I left it for the rest of the department.
Counselors, defendants, sex trafficking, and homicide.
And they were like, it attracts rats and stuff. I'm like, eat it.
Media, but once the court.
They just wanted something to get pissed at me about, because I should have took it. I should have kept it to myself. But it's like they just wanted something to get upset at me about, because like fucking I'm JustinFREAKIN. I'm pushing the boundaries all the time. Pushing boundaries and pushing buttons.
Discharge once. It was terrible. It was green and oozy. It was right out of my arm.
Well, okay. I can see now that like that was Friday night and the department's coming in on Monday morning. I'm leaving them kind of stale shit. So. Yeah. I could see how like it was garbage to them, and I should have thrown it away because it would attract rats. I see that now, but this is like difference of perspective, right? People, this is why I'm like Larry David. I was there in the weekends. I mean, and I was there that weekend. You know, there are people in and out. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's what I'm saying. Like, I probably had.
Already in my Sandoval ruling and other rulings, the protections afforded to the office of the president are not a mitigating factor, but they are a legal mandate.
That is absolutely a live, laugh, Lucifer.
Interesting.
The sticker idea is a really good idea, but I didn't think about that.
Well, you already said that.
I want to know why they didn't haul Deutsche Bank in and all the other banks that were complicit in this.
The cults and satanic panic. Ninjustin.
What, they don't have their own appraisers? Tell them.
Good morning, my friend. Yeah, I thought I was sharing with people, but it's okay. This is just something that happened 12 fucking years ago, 13 years ago. It's 25.
That's the second time she came in.
Yeah. 25 years ago feels like 1985.
I don't know.
I'm getting boomerish. What in the hell is going on in chat? I've missed something.
Right, Jeff? I was gonna do this leapfrog.
No, Merlin. Okay, I'll see your serial killer theory, and I'll raise you. He's a germaphobe and shit. So, Trump. Yeah, it doesn't fit the profile. Hold on, I'll get you a Smokey here. You might have just saw his ass go by. Do people eat beans on the West Coast? Is that a thing? Do you guys eat Bush's baked beans? Are Bush's baked beans a thing on the West Coast? Duke the dog commercial. M-Lord, well, do you know about them? Okay, yes, they're a thing. My lord does make more sense. Holy shit. Nope. Never thought about that. Oh my God. We've just had a revelation. We've just had a revelation. It's my lord, isn't it? Holy shit. No, I don't. I'm not gonna. Oh, okay. Why did you never correct me? Why did you never give me a phonetical pronunciation? It wasn't worth correcting me. Oh my God! Curiouser is dying over here. So, I'm completely oblivious to everything. What does journalism have to do with anything?
Cards out, please. Green cards out.
Oh, I can imagine Media Winch doing it, being like, "My lord." What is JAFO?
Please return your cards.
Really?
Return your cards, please. Very much.
Amazing. Oh my God. He can't pardon himself for state charges. Oh no, this is a federal case, isn't it? I'm stoned. It's early in the morning. I'm too high for this shit. Let's check in with Atlanta. Oh fuck, I don't even know what I'm doing. No, we're going to Atlanta where it's already snowing. They've been freaking out. We checked in with them earlier. They don't know how to drive. Just stop there.
I do want to again acknowledge Director Stalin's comment.
This is a live shot in Atlanta.
Again, if you can stay off the roads, please stay off.
It's like I was talking about last night. In places like this, they don't get a lot of snow, so the municipalities aren't really prepared. They don't have the plows and the stocks of salt.
Where it's slushy, remember to slow down. Drive very conservatively.
Compounded with the fact that there's a lot of people that don't know how to drive in snow, in ice. And this is also an icy snow mix.
If you have an incident that's a non-emergency, call 511 anywhere in the state for a hero assistance.
Because if I am not mistaken, like it's right around freezing.
Safely off the roadway and safely on your way. As we do anticipate ice accumulation this afternoon, as Director Stallings talked about, this becomes even more treacherous. So therefore, please again, stay off the roadways, because if this starts glazing up, it is very...
So because it's right on the freezing line, like it may go back and forth between ice and snow.
Not into tomorrow morning, it can be very dangerous. So please give our crews room to work. And
Flash, good morning.
Our best, and we'll continue to do our best to get the roads open safely as quick as possible. Now I'd like to turn it over to Lieutenant Colonel Lowe with Georgia State Patrol.
Thank you, Commissioner McMurray. We placed all of our personnel on Phase A since it started. We've been assisting GDOT with the Brine truck escorts throughout the state, and we will continue to assist them until this is over. We placed personnel to work 24 hours to be out on the roadway checking for stranded motorists and working crashes as needed. And we're going to continue to do this throughout, assisting DOT with more trucks. If they put more trucks out, we're going to be out there to assist them with wherever they're needed during the storm.
Yeah, one of the best pictures I ever took when I was a photographer. So working for a newspaper, I rode inside of a snow plow. I was also working for a radio station as well.
Thank you.
I might have done a story and gotten some audio of being inside the plow.
Service and our local media outlets for communicating this forecast really well to the public.
I was radio and newspaper, no video.
North and central Georgia. It's going to.
That was in eastern Kentucky.
Through the rest of the morning and the afternoon. We do expect to see a transition to some freezing rain later this morning and the afternoon, and that could cause some ice accumulation
wherever there's room
on top of the snow that's already fallen,
a lot of space.
Which will make it that much harder to melt when the rain moves in later. The temperatures are hovering right around the freezing mark, if not just below, and so like the governor and Commissioner McMurray said, the roads could continue to be difficult and hazardous throughout the day. If we do see some of that ice accumulation occurring on the roads, or if we see some of the liquid that's falling freeze later because the temperatures aren't getting much above freezing, that would make the roads that much more difficult to drive on. The precipitation should continue through this evening, ending by about midnight, but will stay hovering around the freezing mark all the way through tomorrow afternoon, by which point the temperatures will fall after sunset tomorrow to below freezing, bottoming out in the upper teens.
Now we can do the other side of the country where California is still smoldering. Yeah. I do a news show. Probably. I don't know. I don't want to. Do you want a microphone? She's going off on a rant over here. And sorry. She's pretty wound up this morning. Stoned and full of cinnamon roll. I was going to go to a live shot. Fox Los Angeles here, not supposedly live. Maybe it's a static shot they got up. There are people talking about transgenders in the chat. Fucking wild. I am having a difficult time here. We'll go back to Trump after, well, not actually Trump. We'll probably hear from him after the sentencing. This is the courtroom. Oh, the AP. Not really taking the... Here we go, reporting from Box 5 in New York. Nope, Torchy, you're right on time.
Yeah, I didn't have it when I went. Guys, got back. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
I've got to accompany you out. Yeah. And watch Smokey.
This means that he will get no jail time, no probation, no fines. It just becomes part of the official record for Donald Trump. Now, in court today, my colleague Morgan Mackay was in court, and she was sending information to us saying that inside the courthouse, inside that courtroom there, that Donald Trump was leaning in and he was listening intently to the judge. He was also listening as prosecutors spoke. And then Trump had the opportunity to speak as well. And he said, quote,
"Wait, he was there?
A very terrible experience and a setback for the New York court system." He says the payment that he made to his former fixer, Michael Cohen, the $130,000.
Fixer, literally calls him Fixer.
Stormy Daniels, and then Trump reimbursed him for. Trump continues to say it was only a legal expense, that he never did anything wrong, he did not break the law. He goes on to say what he has said many times in the past. He called this a political witch hunt to try and keep him from running for the election.
Supposedly he was going to appear by video.
He said they tried to prevent him from doing that. They tried to prevent him from winning. He said it was just a political witch hunt, and in the end, it did not work because he won the election in November. He said that the people of America understand what happened here, and that, quote, "I was treated very, very unfairly." Now, Donald Trump and his legal team, they had their political strategy is they tried to stretch this out as long as possible. They kept delaying this case and delaying this case and delaying this case in the hope that it would get delayed beyond the point from when he is going to be inaugurated on January 20th. And then the case would have basically gone away until his term was over 4 years from now. That strategy in the end did not work because it got him to this day today, and he ended up getting sentenced. Now, it was early on Wednesday morning that his legal team had appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court to intervene on his behalf, saying that he was protected by presidential immunity and that any actions he took would be protected because that's what the U.S. Supreme Court ruled back in July, that presidents enjoy the benefit of presidential immunity. However, the prosecutors in this case, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, they have maintained all along that he does not enjoy presidential immunity. And the reason is most of the activity happened before he became president. It happened during the campaign. So at this stage, I'm going to try and put my IFB back in here. Bianca, can you hear me now? Can you talk to me for a moment so I know that I can hear you?
Yep, can totally hear you.
Okay,
Thanks
great.
for breaking
Thank
that down
you.
for us.
Okay, good. And I have Morgan Mackay here now. Thanks, Danny. Go ahead, put that on. Just do it. I have my colleague Morgan Mackay here. Morgan, come on in. Now, Morgan, you were in the, and thanks for racing down so quickly. I know it's been crazy inside.
Yeah.
So you were inside the courtroom. He was not here physically. He was here virtually. So you guys were watching him on a monitor. But do me a favor. Talk to me about his demeanor, because I know at one point you said he was really leaning in, listening intently.
Exactly. Now, he walked inside, the judge walked inside, and when he sat down on the bench, that's when we saw President-elect Donald Trump sitting in a window screen on both monitors at the front of the courtroom and then in front of...
Saying he was sitting in a window screen kind of seems like one of my cats up here in the window.
Remarks, welcoming everybody.
He's kind of perched there.
Their turn, and they outlined just the intensity of this case, and they also said that they must be mindful that Trump is going to be sworn in as president, but they say that his actions before, during, and after the trial really eroded the trust in the justice system, and they said that if there was any other defendant, they might be asking for a little bit of a harsher sentence, but they say because he is set to take office, that they understand that the only sentencing that makes sense is unconditional discharge. Then the judge gave Todd Blanche, Trump's lawyer, a chance to speak, and Blanche really said that this case is very inappropriate. He said it was only brought forward once Trump made it clear that he was planning to run for president, and he said the only sentence that would make sense is unconditional discharge, although they disagreed disagree that any sentencing would be making sense. And they also confirmed that they will be appealing this. And then the judge gave Trump a chance to speak, and he said that he was persecuted throughout this entire trial. He called it a witch hunt. He said he referenced a gag order that he was under, prohibiting him from being able to talk about the case, and was just very upset about that as well. And he said that they are going to be appealing, but he was just very disappointed about how everything was handled by prosecutors and everyone involved.
Okay, now, when Trump was talking, did he appear angry? Did he appear belligerent? Or was he more humble in his speaking?
Well, and so that
he's
was
usually pretty belligerent.
Brought up was that Trump hasn't shown, they said, any remorse for his actions. Now, Trump, you know, he wasn't, as we've seen him sometimes, a little more animated, a little more frustrated. He was pretty even toned. You could tell he was obviously still frustrated to be there. He was leaning forward, and he was actually leaning forward throughout the entire thing. And when he was speaking, he was also leaning forward, and he was just very clear that you know, this was very unfair to him, and he spoke about how this case was only brought forward after many prosecutors turned down bringing forward this case. And he said that the only reason that District Attorney Alvin Bragg brought this forward was because he made a campaign promise. Now, the judge, he called it, the whole trial, a paradox. He said outside there were protesters, and inside, though, when the door was closed, Trump was just like any other criminal defendant that he has handled in the past. And he said that under the law, he is required to sentence Trump. And he said that in one power that Trump's presidential office does not have is the ability to erase a jury's verdict. He also mentioned briefly, and I heard you talking about it earlier, is that presidential immunity ruling by the Supreme Court. And that is something that they had to take into account and why they had to delay sentencing for so long. But he said he looked at all of it, and he said it didn't change the fact that a jury had found Trump guilty of 34 counts of falsifying business records in an effort to influence the 2016 presidential election.
And try to cover up the payment so that it would not have any type of negative effect on him while he was running for president. The other thing, too, you know, you're talking about the Manhattan DA's office, you know, Alvin Bragg, prosecutors again, and you just alluded to this, is that they made the point of saying that the jury was, quote, unanimous and decisive, and that must be respected, that you can't go ahead and just throw out the entire case, and that the president does not enjoy presidential immunity in this case because
I remember when I had eggs
that he was convicted of happened before he was inaugurated in 2016.
Exactly, and but Trump's lawyers have been arguing that some of the witness testimony that was used during the trial, some of the evidence that was used during the trial, was during the time that Trump was in office. So they said that should mean that the entire case would be thrown out. But prosecutors argued that there was a lot more to the case than just the couple of tidbits of information. There were some emails. There was also some people that were with Trump in office that were testifying as well. And so they said that all of that together...
Yeah, motherfuckers should have at least got probation.
Entirety of their case that they brought forward, and which Trump was ultimately convicted for.
Right, and in court today, and you heard this firsthand again because Morgan was inside the courtroom watching all of this happen, and again, the president
on probation.
Virtually, he was not physically here.
So American. That would have been the most American thing ever.
The point that President-elect Trump has threatened to punish anybody involved in this case. Talk to me about that.
So he did. He said, the prosecutor said that Trump has threatened to punish anyone involved. He said that, Trump has threatened to dismantle certain parts of the justice system. He said that Trump really eroded the trust of the American people in the justice system and was continuously attacking those involved. Trump didn't really go into detail in response when he was speaking about that point. As we've seen on social media, he has made several attempts to threatened at times. Even the judges.
I don't know that Kash Patel is going to make it through.
Another thing that prosecutors brought up was that Trump was found in violation at least 10 times of certain things.
I will try to keep up on hearing schedules if you guys would like to watch confirmation hearings for some of the more outlandish picks.
So
Texas,
Trump's demeanor when the prosecutor was talking about that, about him threatening people, anybody that's involved with the case, and also the court clerk, and he's also made many negative comments about Judge Juan Merchan himself.
Absolutely, my lord.
Again, just when it started, he leaned forward and he just stared very intently at his screen and was just leaning forward. And you could tell his face was just more, looking down at the screen than anything else.
I am sorry I am that goddamn oblivious about things.
Back, during the trial, he would lean back quite a bit. He would cross his arms and he would huff or at certain points. But this time around, he was actually very demure. He was very
demure
on what was happening, but not really reacting.
Okay, Bianca, I understand that you have a question. What is it? And I can relay it to Morgan.
Very demure in his own lane.
For you, Linda, because just wrapping this up,
moisturized.
No penalty for this hush money case. However, he still will be the first president that will become a felon in the White House. So what implication does that have, if any, considering the way this previous election just went?
Okay, well, it appears at this point it's not going to have any implication at all. He won the election. The American people knew what he was charged with. They knew that he was convicted in this case, 34 felony counts last May, and apparently they didn't care because they reelected him, and he is going to be inaugurated on January 20th.
It's insane.
His legal team tried to stretch this out beyond that inauguration on January 20th, but their legal strategy in this case didn't work.
Appreciate that, Linda. Again, just to wrap this up, as we have to leave right now, no probation, no jail time, and no fires, according to Linda.
We got Sarah Silverman doing the news over here in New York.
Any penalty for his hush money case, but again, still
is this a character?
President as a felon entering the White House. We're going to have more on what this all means coming up on the Noon. Stay with us as we break this down.
This has been a Fox 5 special report.
I believe so.
Okay, if you have it in you, it'd be great. I'll see you then.
Yeah, no, I think I'm on call all day.
I love this.
I guess for the noon, and then Chad said he's gonna, I guess, see for the 3 p.m.
Oh no! I wanted to hear the talk between the producer and probably the camera person. Could have been the producer and the director talking over an open channel. Let's go to, I think I finally got us. I got K-Cal over here in LA. We'll get an update on what's going on with the fires.
And told her she had to evacuate. She had to get out. She was on a Zoom call in the house.
The Eaton fire now up to
so
15,000 acres.
For her. And you look here, one of the things that we noticed as we came in here today is not just the devastation that is playing out here, but also the National Guard are on the streets here now because of these reports of looting. A noticeably stepped up police presence. These homes are gone.
Oh, Jesus.
A few houses down, you have others that were untouched. And we know we've heard reports of people coming back to find their house intact, but that it had been broken into, that their things had been stolen. It's hard to believe that there would be much to salvage here, but you have other homes that are intact. Noticeably stepped up police presence in this area. It is just an infuriating lack of humanity to think about coming into a burn area.
Fuck.
Burglarizing homes, but it is happening. We know at least 20 arrests. The police are very much looking forward and looking to try to crack down on who can get into these areas.
It's such a cowardly and heartless act when you think about it, especially, people are so grateful that their homes are still standing to then have it broken into. It's such a devastating gut punch to the community. I'm disgusted by it, really, to hear this.
And it also makes things more dangerous for the next time, because that's one of the factors that people use to avoid evacuating, because they're trying to protect their property. Chris, what have you been hearing from people?
Well, so we heard from one of our producers who was talking to a resident in Altadena who came back, who is
We're up to 10 people dead at least.
Not every home on that.
I think that death toll is bound to rise.
He's armed and he's protecting them, he says. That could have a very obvious bad outcome.
But they are talking about property.
Lives, not even a mile from here. One of his big concerns is, since they're not at the house, what happens?
Astounded.
They have friends who are in Altadena who didn't lose their home but had their home broken into. It is definitely something on everybody's mind here, and it is something that the police and the sheriff's department have to get a handle on.
Well, and now the National Guard is out there as well. Chris, thank you for being with us this morning. We appreciate it, and stay safe out there.
And the fight against the Palisades fire enters its 4th day now. We want to get to KCAL News reporter Luz Delia Caballero, where dozens of cars were abandoned as people tried to evacuate. Luz Delia, good morning. What does the scene look like now?
Well, it is extremely heart-wrenching to see all of these cars charred. So imagine as the Palisades fire is inching closer on these hillsides, you have dozens of people who now have to flee and run for their safety, for their lives.
I saw somebody post that
cross street.
They only cared about houses worth $1 million or less.
Come in and clear the way.
I know what property values are in California. I'll say I'm only sympathetic to people whose houses are worth like $3.5 million or less.
The charred hillside, and that's what you're looking at right now. To the right, you're going to see a pile of cars that were packed tightly close together by that bulldozer, again making way for the fire engines to come through, because we need these emergency vehicles to come up and aid in this firefighting effort. We were able to go all the way up, in total counting more than 30 cars. And looking at the windshields, because we felt, obviously with these charred vehicles, you see the shell of the cars, but we wanted to know, hey, did anybody leave a note behind? What can we see? We saw people, these cars, a few of them with pet beds, so they must have taken their pets. And obviously here you can see more significant damage to vehicles as that bulldozer came and moved them. And right there you see a note.
That's what I'm saying, meatcakes. Have to raise that just a little bit. I have sympathy for people.
Obviously, that rogue had
3.5 million or below.
And called that person and let them know that their car,
a $3.5 million house in California, specifically Sunset Boulevard, Palisades area. I don't know that there are houses that are
people have been affected. Some
less than 3.5 million there.
Others able to salvage something. Others losing their cars or have.
Well, we did see some modest homes that got burned down, but that was over in
the Palisades fire. And again, just
Altadena, was that the name of the area?
A massive fire that erupted Tuesday morning. Days later, only 6% contained. Nearly 20,000 acres burned, lives lost, more than 5,000 homes, structures destroyed.
No, it's callous to be.
This is heartbreaking. This is hard. This is very, very heavy stuff, and the healing will come, but it is going to take not days, not months, but likely years for this area to somewhat feel like home again.
That's what I'm saying, Lord. It's pretty modest.
Here on Sunset Boulevard, Sparkle and I, even going up this road, we were just thinking to ourselves, oh my goodness, these people must have been so.
Did she just say she went up the road with Sparkles?
Vehicles, and look, some of them fearful for their lives, but thankful to be alive, though their cars didn't have the best luck here. And from what we noticed, again, we were by the hillside, or these cars are by the hills that burned, and thankfully that fire didn't.
I'm doubting Sparkles is in LA because she was very drunk when she was messaging me last night.
As we continue to see more firefighters going up to put out
Goldfish, good morning.
Palisades.
Yeah, Luz Delia, as you're talking, one of my very close friends, Aaron Sampson, was one of the people in those vehicles, had to get his father-in-law, who has Parkinson's, out. They know that the car is now charred and gone. They're just so thankful.
Sparkles told me she wanted trains.
To get out of there.
And I'm like, what?
It was,
and she sent me a picture of what looked like a box that had a puzzle in it. It could have been a book. I'm still not exactly sure. It had something to do with trains, but did not explain what it was on the box.
Absolutely, yeah, and especially when you see what could have happened there. Luz Delia, thank you so
But
much.
she apparently won at it.
Had to be evacuated due to the Eaton fire. We're going to talk to them about how the center was able to get hundreds of people to safety.
The winds are dying down right now.
As oblivious as I am to everything,
2 days of the next 7 will feature.
She's always like very like.
All of the smoke in the atmosphere has led to really bad.
She gives me she'll tell me something about like somebody and acts like I know him. I'm like, who in the fuck are you talking about? It's kind of fun. I had a live shot, like aerial views. Hold on here. Well, I thought I had aerial views of the damage. There is some breaking news from overnight since I last saw you guys for the Troll Patrol. I keep closing my tabs and it's really pissing me off. I'm experimenting with a different browser now. Media Winch finally got me to go over to the Brave.
LA's Rick Chambers, who is live in Calabasas with details on the Kenneth fire and some good news tonight. Rick.
Yeah, Mike, plenty of good news to pass along tonight. The Kenneth fire is out. There are firefighters back up in the canyon behind me. They are mopping it up at this point. The evacuation orders have been lifted, and I'm not sure if you can see the cars over my shoulder. They are streaming back in now. A lot of the residents returning home finally after.
This was about 10 p.m. last night.
By the 101.
1 p.m. Eastern time.
Have a man in custody tonight. They have determined that the Kenneth fire was deliberately set. Listen to the LAPD.
What we know right now is that the incident started here, and about 30 minutes later, a suspect was detained over in Woodland Hills area by citizens.
So someone purposely set the Kenneth fire?
At this time, that's what we believe, yes.
Do you know how or why they did that?
That I don't know.
Is this a crime scene right now?
Yes.
So everything's closed off?
It's being investigated as a crime.
And apparently it was folks there in Woodland Hills that earlier today noticed this person acting suspicious and made what you might consider a citizen's arrest. Listen to one of the people involved.
The citizen's arrest.
My mom and I were sitting up in our backyard in the house here, and all of a sudden I hear a car come to a screeching halt, and the guy is running out saying, "Stop, stop, drop what you're holding, drop what you're holding." And then next thing we hear is him yelling, "Neighbors, neighbors, he's trying to start a fire, call 911, call 911. My mom ran out in her bathrobe ready to fight the guy. And all of the neighbors started coming out, calling 911. We really banded together as a group. A few gentlemen in the neighborhood had detained him. They had surrounded him, gotten him on his knees, and then they got some zip ties, and my stepdad came out with some rope, and we were able to do a citizen's arrest and detain him until the police had arrived. He had a propane tank, or it's a big yellow tank, like a flamethrower basically. And the neighbor said that he saw the guy behind a van trying to light something on fire. The guy looked like he was in his mid-20s. He said that he had a blowtorch to smoke marijuana because he could afford a lighter. He spoke a lot of Spanish, but did speak some English as well. We had some Spanish-speaking neighbors.
Wait, was he just smoking some reefer? Okay.
He did seem in an altered state, though. We were just so happy that law enforcement came so quickly with such a huge response.
Did they fuck up and just arrest a guy because he was Mexican and smoking weed?
And it really was a valiant effort. They did their due diligence, and I hope the detectives can put this case to rest.
I don't know that I trust this.
On Hills today, and while the
Mr. Sprunk, good morning.
There were some frightening moments earlier today as those flames spread very quickly.
Do you guys think there might be something up with this?
Scared
yeah, he could have had a dab rig or something.
They came streaming out, many of them carrying their pets, dragging suitcases that were filled with their personal
Was
belongings.
this just a dude hanging out and
get in there pretty quickly,
getting high, and they arrested him for arson?
Impact along with the hand crews.
Just because they want to blame somebody, they want
there, but calm down. Finally, they were able to really
some sort of scapegoat.
The flames are out. 962 acres as we come back live here.
I'm not comfortable with that.
Acres were burned by the Kenneth fire. We're told that there are still several hundred firefighters back up in that canyon. They'll be doing structure protection for the most part tonight. But
I don't trust the cops to admit they were wrong and be like, oh, this dude was just smoking weed.
Probably until the early morning hours tomorrow.
This is the LA County Sheriff. This is one of the most absolutely corrupt police departments in the country.
Residents now returning home. I'm Rick Chambers. Guys, I'll throw it back to you in the studio.
That was the story about the citizen's arrest. I got another one for you. Overnight, a aircraft collided with a drone. This supposedly Canadian super scooper plane collided with a drone. Ex-Rock's Fist, good morning.
With you that we just got into our live now from Fox studios. Really alarming news, to say the least. Take a good look. This, as we're getting this from LA County Fire on X, formerly known as Twitter. You see it there on your screen. They say today, January 9th, 2025. So this happened yesterday at approximately 1 p.m. They say while flying in the Palisades Fire area, Super Scooper Quebec 1 was struck by a civilian drone that was not assigned to the Palisades Fire. So to give you some perspective of what the Super Scooper Quebec,
that is why you don't fly drones in areas that they
there on your screen, the airplane which is releasing water.
I don't remember what the designation is. I barely slept and I'm very high.
Over the impacted areas that are currently on fire. Sometimes they have
Prometheus, all kinds of juicy shit.
Maybe before they get to the fire, so the wind can put it into place, or maybe after the fire so it can blow it in.
Oh, you're too kind.
Very strategic. Well, Quebec 1 sustained wind damage and remains grounded and out of service this Friday morning. There were no reported injuries, though. Thankful news there. The incident is under investigation by the Federal Aviation Administration. And again, this is because the civilian drone was not assigned to the Palisades Fire.
Wait, Meatcakes, are you saying there's video of this happening?
The LA County Fire Department, they would like to remind everyone that flying a drone in the midst of firefighting efforts is a federal crime and punishable by up to 12 months in prison or a fine of up to $75,000. And you can see that damage that was sustained to the Quebec 1 in the second image there towards the bottom of your screen. Of course, this is an ongoing investigation as to why the civilian drone was in the airspace in the first place.
I had a Costco pizza for the first time.
And the controversy surrounding drones,
just like last year,
of why many people feel they should not be flying in the airspace, as the Super Scooper Quebec 1 was doing its job, trying to get water from the ocean to then release over the blaze that's still burning.
I went to Costco for the first time ever, like last year.
Wing damage. So wanted to provide and share that with you in real time right here on Live Now.
Yeah, I've heard their hot dogs are good, or at least good for the price, I guess. Other breaking news this early morning, because goddamn, why not? It's a full-on fucking troll patrol. Mr. Sprunk, did I tell you good morning? Alec Baldwin is suing prosecutors in the sheriff's office over the Rust case.
Actor Alec Baldwin sued New Mexico prosecutors and sheriff's office officials Thursday. The lawsuit filed in Santa Fe alleged malicious prosecution against him for the 2021 fatal shooting of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins on the movie set of Rust. It comes after a judge dramatically dismissed Baldwin in July during his manslaughter trial after ruling Special Prosecutor Carrie Morrissey and the Sheriff's Office deliberately withheld evidence from Baldwin on the source of a live round that killed Hutchins. Baldwin's attorneys say in the complaint, for the best part of 3 years, New Mexico officials pursued Baldwin for political and personal goals in a, quote, conspiracy to bring him to trial. They listed actions.
Oh my God, that sounds exactly like Trump. The dude that impersonated Trump on Saturday Night Live is now pulling a fucking Trump. Are you fucking serious? This timeline. What the hell is going on?
Such as Special Prosecutor Andrea Reeves' comment that the case could help her political career as a Republican state representative, to Morrissey presenting, quote, false and incomplete testimony to win a grand jury indictment. Morrissey said prosecutors had long known Baldwin would file a retaliatory civil lawsuit and said she would look forward to appearing in court. Reeb and the Santa Fe Sheriff's Office did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Legal proceedings following Hutchins' death saw the movie's weapons handler Hannah Gutierrez convicted of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to prison. Baldwin, also a Rust producer, has always said live rounds should not have been allowed on set, and he was not responsible for weapon safety.
Insane. And these headlines, man with a blowtorch arrested. If it was just one of those little motherfuckers, I swear, Oh wow, this is the
American public has the right to a presidency unencumbered by pending court proceedings or ongoing sentence relief.
This is the audio from the court hearing.
But imposing this sentence ensures that finality. Sentencing the defendant permits this court to enter judgment, to cement the defendant's status as a convicted felon while he pursues whatever appeals he intends to pursue. And it gives full effect and respect to the jury's verdict while preserving the defendant's ability to govern. The people therefore recommend that this court impose a sentence of an unconditional discharge. Thank you.
Thank you. Counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. I very much disagree with what
this is Trump's attorney.
The government just said about this case, about the legitimacy of what happened in this courtroom during the trial, and about President Trump's conduct fighting this case from before it was indicted, to while it was indicted, to the jury's verdict, and even to this day. What the government just said presupposes something that we disagree with very much, which was that this was an appropriate case to be brought. It was not. This case, without a doubt, knowing everything we know about the timing of the investigation, the fact that multiple prosecutors looked at the fact of this case, including prosecutors within the district attorney's office in New York County, and made a decision not to bring charges. As the court knows, shortly after President Trump announced his intention to run for re-election, this case was started for what amounted to a third time, which brings us ultimately to where we are today. A lot of what the government just said presupposes that this case is legally appropriate and that the charges that were brought by the people were consistent with the laws of New York. Again, we very much disagree with that, and as everybody has been noted, because it's true, we certainly intend on appealing that. And it's not, by the way, just counsel and President Trump that feels that way. There's many legal experts
Many.
share the same views that I just said, which is that legally this case should not have been brought, both based on the facts that were established at trial and also on the legal basis for which they were brought. But it's also not just the legal experts, not just counsel, and not just President Trump, but the majority of the American people also agree that this case should not have been brought. I mean, the interesting thing about the fact that there was a trial for the first time in our history, a criminal trial during an election season, is that the American voters got a chance to see and decide for themselves whether this is the kind of case that should have been brought. And they decided. And that's why in 10 days, President Trump is going to assume the office of the President of the United States. And certainly we're here for the court to sentence President Trump to an unconditional discharge. And for that, it's a very sad day. It's a sad day for President Trump and his family and friends. But it's also, in counsel's view, a sad day for this country, because this was a case, without a doubt, that was brought by a district attorney who promised that he would go after President Trump if elected and felt like he had to go through with that promise. And so that's sad. And I hope, and I know that President Trump shares this view, that this will never happen again in this country. And so we certainly understand where we are today. We very much intend on pursuing an appeal of this verdict and what happened during this investigation. And we certainly believe that the only appropriate sentence, if one's to be imposed at all, which we very much believe it shouldn't be, and that the case should be dismissed, is a sentence of an unconditional discharge. Thank you.
Thank you. Would your client like to be heard?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor.
Here you go.
This has been a very terrible experience. I think it's been a tremendous setback for New York and the New York court system. This is a case that Alvin Bragg did not want to bring. He thought it was, from what I read and from what I hear, inappropriately handled before he got there. A gentleman from a law firm came in and acted as a district attorney, and that gentleman, from what I heard, was a criminal or almost criminal in what he did. It was very inappropriate. It was somebody involved with my political opponent. Part of the records that we're talking about, they're saying, I just noticed where he said I was falsifying business records. Well, the falsification of business records, as they said, was calling a legal expense in the books where everybody could see them, a legal expense. In other words, that legal fees or legal expense were put down as legal expense by accountants. They weren't put down by me, they were put down by accountants. I didn't call them construction, concrete work. I didn't call them electrical work. I didn't call them anything. They called a legal fee or a legal expense, and for this, I got indicted. It's incredible, actually. Now, if you look, my attorney alluded to
It's too early and I'm too hot, DJ Dub. Good morning.
legal scholars and legal pundits in this country, the ones that are quoted all the time on television, that are making their views felt, and highly respected people, have said, everyone, virtually everyone that I know of, haven't seen any to the contrary, not one, and none of these people are not exactly friends of mine, to put it mildly. But they all said this is a case that should have never been brought.
I one up, tip one back.
Of justice. Very respected Jonathan Turley, Andy McCarthy, Judge David Rifkin, a wonderful man who just passed away, by the way, Greg Jarrett, Ellie Honig from CNN, of all places.
You said respected.
Said that. Paul Ingracia, Alan Dershowitz. They all said this is not...
You said respected.
Now, think about it. Legal expenses are down as legal expenses, and...
Alan Dershowitz.
For business records, everybody should be so accurate.
Everybody should be so accurate.
It was done to damage my reputation so that I'd lose the election, and obviously that didn't work. And the people of our country got to see this firsthand because they watched the case in your courtroom. They got to see this firsthand, and then they voted, and I won and got the largest number of votes by far of any Republican candidate in history, and won, as you know, all 7 swing states, won conclusively all 7 swing states, and won the popular vote by me.
The judge is just going to let him now.
So they understood it.
Let him have his little piece.
Use the lawyer-client privilege or the reliance on counsel. I had a lawyer that made this deal, and he admitted that. And he was also a totally discredited person. We weren't allowed to use the information from the Southern District that totally discredited him. It wasn't allowed to be put in. And that was terrible, unbelievable. And this is a man who's got no standing. He's been disbarred on other matters, unrelated. And
who, me or Trump? Who sounds high?
But he's not George Washington. He shouldn't have.
I have a good excuse. I don't know that he does.
Of approximately 28 pages where I've never seen anything like it. They excoriated him. You wouldn't let it be put into evidence. So he was able to testify as a witness, and I think it's a disgrace to the system. I was under a gag order. I'm the first president in history that was under a gag order where I couldn't talk about aspects of the case that are very important. I guess I'm still under, so probably I won't do it now. I assume I'm still under a gag order. But the fact is that I'm totally innocent. I did nothing wrong. They talked about business records, and the business records were extremely accurately counted. I had nothing to do with them. That was done by an accountant or a bookkeeper who I think gave very credible testimony and was corroborated by everybody that was asked. And with all that's happening in our country today, with a city that's burning to the ground, one of our largest, most important cities burning to the ground, with wars that are uncontrollably going on, with all of the problems of inflation and
hey, now, let's not denigrate naps.
And all of the horrible things that are going on.
I'm going to take one right after the stream.
Over calling a legal expense a legal expense. It was called a legal expense.
It was a legal expense.
I just want to say I think it's an embarrassment to New York, and New York has a lot of problems, but this is a great embarrassment. I believe that this...
Of course, with my kitties.
...that were brought, as you know, the DOJ is very much involved in this case. It's because that's the political opponent they're talking about. The DOJ is very involved. You have a gentleman sitting there from the DOJ who was from the DOJ's office. He was also involved with the New York State Attorney General's case. And he went from there to here. He went around and did what he had to do. He got them to move on me. But in the meantime, I won the election.
Move on you.
A massive landslide. And the people
moved on you like a bitch, right?
This has been a weaponization of government. They call it lawfare. Never happened to any extent like this, but never happened in our country before. And I'd just like to explain that I was treated very, very unfairly. And I thank you very much.
I thank you very much. And you're welcome even less.
We're here before this court today to conclude this criminal proceeding by the imposition of sentence. Although I have taken the unusual step of informing you in advance of my inclinations, before imposing sentence, I believe it is important for you, as well as those observing these proceedings, to understand my reasoning for the sentence I am about to impose. The imposition of sentence is one of the most difficult and significant decisions that any criminal court judge is called upon to make. Our legislature sets the parameters for an authorized sentence, but it is a judge that must decide what constitutes a just conclusion to a verdict of guilty. The court is vested with broad discretion in determining what sources or evidence it may consider to arrive at an appropriate sentence. In doing so, the court must consider the facts of the case along with any aggravating or mitigating circumstances. In my time on the bench, I've been called upon to grapple with this weighty responsibility for countless defendants who have been found guilty after trial for an assortment of offenses, ranging from nonviolent Class E felonies to the most heinous of crimes, including homicides, sex trafficking, and child sexual abuse. The task is always difficult and deserving of care.
Sounds like you're still talking about Trump.
Whether the sentence be an unconditional discharge or incarceration of 25 years to life. However, never before has this court been presented with such a unique and remarkable set of circumstances. Indeed, it can be viewed fairly that this has been a truly extraordinary case. There was unprecedented media attention, public interest, and heightened security involving various agencies. And yet, the trial was a bit of a paradox because once the courtroom doors were closed, the trial itself was no more special, unique, or extraordinary than the other 32 criminal trials that took place in this courthouse at the same exact time. Jury selection was conducted, the same rules of evidence were followed, opening statements were made, witnesses called and cross-examined.
See, I should have been a lawyer.
Summations delivered.
And if I got to be a judge, these kind of speeches, they'd be entertaining.
Delivered a verdict. And it was all conducted pursuant to the rules of procedure and guided by the law. Of course, part of what made it feel somewhat ordinary was the outstanding work, preparation, and professionalism of the clerks, court officers, court reporters, security personnel, and the entire staff of this building who did their jobs as they would with...
Fuck it, I'm going to go to law school.
So while one can argue that the trial itself was in many respects somewhat ordinary, the same cannot be said about the circumstances surrounding this sentencing.
I can still be a lawyer.
That is because of the office you once occupied and which you will soon occupy again. To be sure, it is the legal protections afforded to the office of the President of the United States that are extraordinary, not the occupant of the office. The legal protections, especially within the context of a criminal prosecution, afforded to the office of the President have been laid out by our founders,
Good morning, Rocky.
the Constitution, and most recently interpreted by the United States Supreme Court in the matter of Trump versus the United States, which was decided on July 1st, 2024. As with every other defendant in your position, it is my obligation to consider any and all aggravating and mitigating factors to inform my decision. Some of those aggravating factors have already been articulated in my Sandoval ruling at the start of this trial and by my recent written decisions on December 16th and January 3rd.
Sky Common, I think you'd be good at that.
Need not be repeated at this time. However, the considerable, indeed, extraordinary legal protections afforded by the office of the Chief Executive is a factor that overrides all others. To be clear, the protections afforded the office of the President are not a mitigating factor. They do not reduce the seriousness of the crime or justify its commission in any way. The protections are, however, a legal mandate which, pursuant to the rule of law, this court must respect and follow. However, despite the extraordinary breadth of those protections, one power they do not provide is the power to erase a jury verdict. It is clear from legal precedent, which until July 1st was scarce, that Donald Trump, the ordinary citizen, Donald Trump, the criminal defendant, would not be entitled to such considerable protections. I'm referring to protections that extend well beyond those afforded the average defendant who winds their way through the criminal justice system each day. No, ordinary citizens do not receive those legal protections. It is the office of the President that bestows those far-reaching protections to the office holder. And it was the citizenry of this nation that recently decided that you should once again receive the benefits of those protections, which include, among other things,
Still stunned by that.
Supremacy Clause and presidential immunity. It is through that lens and that reality that this court must determine a lawful sentence. After careful analysis, in obedience to governing mandates, and pursuant to the rule of law, this court has determined that the only lawful sentence that permits entry of a judgment of conviction without encroaching upon the highest office in the land is an unconditional discharge, which the New York State Legislature has determined is a lawful and permissible sentence for the crime of falsifying business records in the first degree. Therefore, at this time, I impose that sentence to cover all 34 counts. Sir, I wish you Godspeed as you assume your second term in office. Thank you.
Oh, DJ Dub, were you not aware that that's what was happening?
Have you given your client his written notice of right to appeal?
We will, Judge.
Thank you.
Ben, good morning. We just finished with the audio from Trump's sentencing taking place about an hour and a half ago, something like that. Another historic thing happening this morning. As we have been on stream, we bounced back and forth between the snowstorm in Atlanta, the fires in California, but there was also the inauguration of Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela.
Un abrazo que recuerda todo el trabajo que se ha venido realizando.
This happening about 45 minutes ago. He's still speaking currently.
Para los pueblos, donde se pudo evidenciar lo que es el fervor por parte del comandante Hugo Chávez Frías, el comandante Fidel Castro Ruz y este emblemático personaje para.
Do we not have subtitles?
Y muy queridos presidentes, primeros ministros, enviados especiales, cancilleres.
Well, damn it, AP.
Organizaciones multilaterales.
That does us no good. Rocky, why are you acting surprised about an earthquake in California?
Líderes.
Oh my God, can you believe it? Something that happens all the time happened. Sorry. Can we get a version with subtitles somewhere? Hey, where's Warlord at? I'm on in like British prime time or some shit. Well, shit, there are streams talking about Venezuela. There's a lot of... Okay, this is CNBC. Let's see if they have subtitles on their stream. Nope. So this is live. This is a live shot. Maduro is still speaking. His presidential inauguration for his third term, I believe.
¿Qué ofrece la oligarquía? ¿Qué ofrecen los apellidos? Volver al viejo sistema representativo.
He might not have served a full term the first
Al
time.
viejo sistema de cúpulas. al viejo sistema de oligarquías, al viejo sistema, no. Podrían preguntar a alguien, ¿y tú, Maduro, qué ofreces? Yo no vengo a ofrecer nada, yo vengo a hacer. Nosotros vamos a hacer la revolución del 2025-2031, que va a ser una revolución democratizadora, liberadora de Venezuela en lo económico, en lo social.
I'm going to have to cut away from it because we don't have subtitles, so it makes no fucking sense. At least to me. Some of you guys may speak Spanish in Venezuela, right? It's Portuguese in Brazil and like a couple of other countries, but like predominantly South America is Spanish, correct? Let's go back to KCAL News. We have a press conference updating the wildfires. I've seen reports that they are actually spreading. The last numbers I've seen on containment was several, like the Palisades fire was 6% contained.
Seen us in keeping our communities safe.
MILF, good morning.
To all of the agencies who have come to aid during this time of help, and it absolutely does not go unnoticed. Thank you.
Yeah, now Sheriff Robert Luna. Thank you, Sheriff.
Good morning to everybody. This morning we have well over 500 LA County deputies that are assisting.
It was 8 o'clock
on evacuations, traffic
the Pacific Coast,
security patrols, and other humanitarian efforts. They're out there. I hear people calling me. They see a lot of black and white police cars rolling with lights and siren.
The focus now is apparently on looting.
They've been actively patrolling evacuated areas and are increasing their presence to deter any burglary or looting activity that may occur. Just to summarize on evacuations for all the fires that we're dealing with, evacuations orders stand at approximately 153,000 residents that are under evacuation orders and approximately 57,830 structures.
Flying drones is dangerous.
Evacuation warnings, approximately 166,800 residents under both warnings, or I'm sorry, those are just specifically for warnings. What I want to go to next, and we started.
Of course, they're referencing a drone collided with a Canadian aircraft last night.
In all
the Kenneth fire now at 16% containment. Is that what it said?
It was
the Eaton fire at 3% containment,
and it's going to be in effect tonight at 6 p.m. So it ended at 6 a.m. this morning. Will take effect again until 6 p.m. I'm emphasizing that to
I
our.
feel like it's just a given that air quality is a concern. Oh God, what was that?
You cannot.
That seemed like a structure on fire in the middle of somewhere. There was no fires.
To arrest. That is important. We're not doing this to inconvenience anybody. We're doing it to protect the structures, the house.
Yeah, that
people have left because we ordered them to leave, and I want
that doesn't look good.
That we are doing everything we can to secure that. This curfew will be strictly enforced and is being taken to enhance public safety, protect property, and prevent any burglaries or looting in the area that the residents have evacuated.
Coalink, good morning.
That will be allowed in these areas.
I'm going to have to say I agree with you.
Okay. So
I find it insulting,
trying to get in there,
inhumane that they were
who have
talking about looting on the news.
Yes, you may enter those areas unless it's very, very unsafe.
People have died in these fires
for that reason.
I believe I saw that we were up to 10. That death toll surely to rise.
To arrest for a misdemeanor offense under LA County Code Section 2.
Thank you for being a freaking follower.
And conviction may result in a fine up to $1,000 or jail time.
I'm not usually on at this time.
Right now, I know.
I came on for the Trump sentencing.
No bail, and I've given.
You find out what that news be doing Sunday through Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern.
They are not going to get cited and released. They're going to get booked. We are not screwing around with this. We don't want anyone taking advantage of our residents that have already been victimized. The National Guard deployment. As many of you are aware, we asked for the National Guard I'm very thankful to Governor Newsom and the State Office of Emergency Services that fulfilled that request. As of last night, we've had National Guardsmen assisting us. They arrived last night and deployed to the Eaton Fire area, and were assisting with road closures and critical infrastructure protection. As additional Guard personnel arrive, and they will be in the next 12 to 24 hours, the Sheriff's Department will strategically coordinate their deployment with other partners such as the Los Angeles Police Department, Pasadena Police Department, Santa Monica Police Department, Azusa, and Arcadia. Those are the requests we have now. That may grow. We'll adjust as time goes on. I want to make sure that if anybody needs updated information on either evacuation orders or warnings or road closures, they go to lacounty.gov/emergency. And with that, I am going to be introducing Assistant Chief Dominic Choi from the Los Angeles Police Department.
All right.
Link, it's funny you should mention that.
I just want to extend our
because I was just getting ready to flip back over to Atlanta, but they were in the studio with a weather report. I wanted to go to a live shot.
Property in this fire.
All right, now they're back to a live shot. They were on their radar screen.
Man, because she received
live in downtown Atlanta from Fox 5.
And the fact that it has fallen shows that cheaters never prosper. So now that we get past that, let's talk about the situation here. Still snowing in Calhoun. It's been snowing now for a good hour plus. Stopped for a while. We didn't get nearly as much snow as we were originally expecting.
My apologies. Apparently in Calhoun, not downtown Atlanta.
About an inch total, but we have seen a number of snowplows that have come through, doing what they can to keep these streets as clear as possible. As far as the situation with accumulation, well, it hasn't been nearly as much as these folks were thinking, but that didn't stop at least one family from going out and enjoying the weather.
Yeah, they're giving us like 3 to 7 inches. Like, it's probably just going to be a dusting.
I think she loves it, but I don't even know if she really cares, but she seems to love it.
But don't be so hard on weathermen. I mean, like, predicting the weather is kind of difficult.
He was carrying a sled. He was hoping to go sledding.
Just because they give you a 70% chance and the 30% happens doesn't mean that they're bad at their jobs.
Street that he wasn't even able to use that on any of the hills. So we're going to stay on top of this.
They can only predict what the conditions are going to be.
You do need to stay off the roads. They are expecting these situations to get worse. And here in Calhoun and Gordon County, they say they've had a number of accidents. Luckily, at least for now, none of them have been serious, and they don't have any injuries to report. Back to you guys in studio.
And this kind of weather can be the most dangerous.
A lot of wrecks.
A lot of wrecks, yeah.
All right, Mark, thank you so much. It's been neat to see how everyone's enjoying and embracing this snow today.
I mean, what else can you do? And thankfully, we were well prepared. So schools closed down. A lot of folks said work from home if you can, or take the day off. So if you are lucky enough to be at home today, yeah, you just got to enjoy it.
And it's a Friday. It's easier to take a long weekend.
Very often, you know, so we enjoy it while we can. So now we want to go up to Good Day's Johnny Edwards, who's been
still kind of feels like it's the holidays to me.
Right now, still looks like a winter wonderland behind you there, Johnny. How are conditions doing right now?
Paul and Natalie, I wouldn't call it a winter wonderland. It is very cold out here and it is slushy. I want to say I would love to make a snowman, but the snow out here along I-85 is nothing I want to put my hands in. We have a view here looking north on I-85. All morning long we've been getting reports of all kinds of mishaps on the roadways around Gwinnett County. A tractor-trailer accident, cars broken down, roads iced over. Sound like a broken record, I know, but here are some roads you really want to avoid in Gwinnett County. Five Forks Trickham Road, multiple incidents there, including accidents. Hamilton Mill Road, Boggs Road, Indian Trail, Lilburn Road, and Winder Highway at Harbins Road is reportedly iced over. So we'll be keeping up with that, and we'll keep you posted. Back to you.
All right, Johnny Edwards, we appreciate it. I still think you could build a snowman. I know maybe you want to keep your hand out of some of the oil slicks, but I mean, I think you could find a little patch there.
Atlanta already seen the snow. Texas saw snow
little guardrail here.
yesterday.
We will be watching closely, my friend.
All right, Johnny, thank you. And as you might imagine, the winter weather has created some major traffic issues in our
Further over on the East Coast, we're expecting it 1-2 p.m.
northbound at West Paces Ferry Road. You can see emergency.
That's why Curiouser made the run to the dispensary this morning
We do have
in an attempt to beat the snow.
As you can see, northbound traffic is not moving through. So again, it looks deceiving out there, but you need to stay off these roads.
Absolutely.
For the remainder of the day.
Tells the story right there. Yeah, we hope everybody's okay. So we'll be checking on the roads and the conditions and this changing weather coming up right after the break. Stay tuned.
That's the latest update in Atlanta. Still at the press conference over in Los Angeles.
Los Angeles County District Attorney Nathan Hochman.
Also the swearing in of Nicolas Maduro.
District Attorney's Office will be considering up to now 5 different types of cases that will eventually be presented from law enforcement. Let's start with arson. If it is determined that there is a man-made and intentional setting of any of the fires involved in this situation, the people who committed this arson will be arrested, they will be prosecuted, and they will be punished to the full extent of the law. Right now, obviously, law enforcement and the firefighters are focused on containing these properties, saving lives, saving homes. But eventually we will get to the cause.
Also going on right now that I'll have to find us a translation. This is an interesting thing. The Danish Prime Minister Fredriksson and the Greenland, whatever the fuck, it just says Greenland counterpart. It doesn't even give their official title. Egdi held a press conference just in the last hour.
Selvstændighed, det er i mine øjne både legitimt, det er også forståeligt, og det er
I can only imagine that.
Stor respekt for. Og derfor må vi heller ikke som danskere, synes jeg, hænge fast i en tid, der var.
This had something to do with Donald Trump's threats of
Rigsfællesskabet er noget andet i dag end det.
Military action if he's not allowed to purchase Greenland.
Fremtiden. Jeg er glad for, at vi har fået etableret en arbejdsrelation, som bygger på tillid, og som bygger på åbenhed, hvor vi kan tale ærligt om vi står overfor. Og jeg tror, vil jeg gerne sige, i forlængelse af det, at vi som Danmark godt kan blive bedre til også at konfrontere vores egen fortid og vores egen historie. Fordi der er lyse kapitler i samarbejdet, men der er også nogle mørke. Og jo bedre
Dude on the left is the Prime Minister of...
at få videreudviklet vores samarbejdsrelation ind i fremtiden. Jeg vil gerne i den her...
Or whatever the fuck they call the Greenland, right?
I de 3 lande, der er med i rigsfællesskabet.
The woman is the Prime Minister of Denmark, I believe.
Det samme syn på verden, og vi har...
His podium says, Formand for
og i forskellige andre relationer.
And that's probably pretty close.
Vi er 3 lande, vi er 3 folk, vi er 3 sprog, vi er 3 kulturer, og det er nogle forskelligheder, som der skal være plads til. Jeg synes, der er
But I would assume they were responding to Donald Trump's threats. Good morning. That wasn't far off. I want to try it again. So her says Statsministeren.
Som påbegyndes i maj i år. Vi er nu enige om en klar rolle.
And his says Formand for...
Vi har fundet en model, hvor det er en kandidat til arktisk ambassadør, der efter færøsk...
I'm sorry, I don't mean to mock your language.
Et andet eksempel.
Which is... What is their language called? I don't even know. Do they speak Finnish? Swedish? Denmarkish? Motherfucker. They speak Danish. Greenlandish. They all speak English well. That makes sense. Denmark has one official language, Danish. However, there are several minority languages spoken throughout the territory. If you include the Faroe Islands and Greenland, Danes are taught English from a very young age, and 86% of all Danes speak English as a second language. Danish is a North Germanic language from the Indo-European family. There you go. Back to the press conference taking place in L.A.
Entire state for a very long time, making us, unfortunately, response experts. Now is the time for you to focus on your family and on your health. The last thing you should be worrying about is your insurance. Here's what I've done to protect our wildfire.
Whoa!
I am using my moratorium power to stop all non-renewals and cancellations. Last night, I issued a bulletin.
Oh, I see what he's saying. Okay.
Affected by the Palisades and Eaton fires from non-renewals and cancellations by your insurance companies for 1 year.
I was like, no, we learned last night, I believe it was, you want to go ahead and file your claim as soon as you can.
Your home wasn't destroyed or damaged in the wildfire. You can visit insurance.ca.gov to look up your zip code if you are near these wildfires and obtain that protection. I'm also calling on insurance companies to suspend any pending non-renewals and cancellations that homeowners received before these fires started. This means that if you've received a non-renewal from your homeowner's insurance between October 9th and January 7th,
oh wow,
essentially 90 days, your insurance company should do the right thing and retain you as a valued policyholder. I call upon all
State Farm is going to say they don't have the money to pay out the claims
and provide essential stability for our communities, allowing consumers to focus on what's important at the moment, their safety and recovery. In my notice, I also urged insurers to extend the payment grace period beyond the existing 60 days for policyholders in areas directly affected by the wildfires, enabling Angelenos to pay their home insurance premiums amidst the challenges that they are currently facing. And if you're
I love this shit, but
or if you don't have coverage, please call us at 1-800-927-4357. We can help you find additional solutions.
I'm also a realist.
Also directed my departments.
Yeah, I don't know who this guy is.
Protect Angelenos from fraudsters.
We didn't get the introduction for him.
And to assist with the ongoing evacuation efforts. My department has moved quickly to host an insurance support workshop on January 18th and 19th at Santa Monica College, followed by another event the following weekend at Pasadena City College. We will have experts from...
I would have to imagine he's some sort of state official to have the power to do that.
Available so homeowners can obtain answers and take the action they need in one convenient location. Again, call us at 1-800-927-4357 to schedule a one-on-one appointment with our experts. Related to health, I've issued an additional notice to all California health insurers directing them to submit emergency plans to my department. These plans must detail how they're going to ensure that consumers can continue to access essential medical care and obtain their medications in the wake of these disasters. I've been in constant communication with our county leaders, governor.
They let Trump rant for about 20 minutes. It was kind of fun to listen to.
Our recovery, reduce
unconditional discharge. He is officially a felon, but ain't shit gonna happen to him.
Making homes and communities safer from wildfires needs to be a top priority for our state. Looking forward, I'm going to ask the governor and the state legislature to support my proposal to provide consumers with home hardening.
Did I sum that up well, guys?
Put money in people's hands. This measure is critical to protecting homes and improving long-term.
And I might have been high enough for that shit.
We are also going to be introducing legislation to include businesses in our moratorium law. Businesses are an important consumer.
Yeah, the audio was fun to listen to, but we've probably, all the other shit we've covered this morning has probably been more, I don't want to say fun, interesting, engaging.
Insurance rates more stable and predictable. My sustainable insurance strategy.
From the fires to the snow in Atlanta to the swearing in of Nicolas Maduro.
Fire areas, if they are going to use
the press conference from the
and incorporate the
Dutch Prime Minister and the Greenland, whoever the fuck he is.
Why is this important for our residents?
Whatever the fuck he's called.
Californians in wildfire-prone areas retain access to insurance and brings competition back into the market and ultimately lowering the cost. Without these measures, insurance companies may continue non-renewals, leaving communities at greater risk of underinsurance and total loss.
I read a few Dutch words, and it was kind of fun. That was a good bit.
I want to be clear. I am confident that these reforms.
Oh, and Alec Baldwin is suing the prosecutors and the sheriff's department.
Insurance market encourage
that charged him in the Russ shooting.
Expand
it's been a busy morning.
And protect the solvency of our market. We remain the largest insurance market in the nation, fourth in the world. Our goal is to ensure they remain financially solvent.
Oh, and the C-SPAN calls were fucking wild.
Our insurance
Holy shit.
In the long run. Now, let me just quickly address issues surrounding the insurer of last
We're offering $25 million for Maduro's arrest? My God.
That reforms are necessary as the coverage maximums have not changed in 30 years. I recognize that for some Californians, the coverage limits, even the ones that we've already implemented, are still very low. Under my strategy, we have also ensured the creation of a stronger, more sustainable FAIR plan with the long-term financial strategy to withstand the challenging fires we are experiencing today. Let me be clear. Once the fires are brought under control,
what's the difference?
We will get data directly from the insurance industry.
And is that racist for me to say that without me even knowing?
As we have, that we have on all the other fires that may or may not happen. We are focused on maintaining the FAIR plan's financial health while getting people back to the regular.
Oh, and Curiouser did a face reveal on camera. That was wild.
Actions are focused on ensuring that the insurance companies meet their commitments to the consumers.
I think so, Torchy, but I think it's like symbolic, like
not just in this crisis, but
like in the UK.
We are here to help. Please call us. We speak multiple languages in whatever language you feel comfortable. Insurance can be complicated. We are here to help you decipher your policy and help you understand what your rights are as consumers. Please call us at 1-800-927-4357, or you can use our live chat feature on our website at insurance.
Again, you're looking at live shots over here on the right of the destruction from the fires.
I assure you, and thank you.
LA County Assessor Jeff Prang.
Good morning.
This is now just a circle jerk of agencies, isn't it? This isn't really.
But in the coming days, the focus will return to recovery. Initial reports suggest that 10,000 properties have been damaged or destroyed.
I mean, I don't know. Each agency has their own.
I appreciate that property
shit they're dealing with, and it is good to have a press conference where
so many are focused on housing and safety, but financial issues will soon become.
Everybody can get their updates in.
Under California law, if your property, your home or your business has been damaged or destroyed, you may qualify for property tax relief under the
LA County Assessor Jeff Pang. I like how they didn't font the other guy, so I could tell you who he was. I apologize for that.
Which is what your taxes are based upon, to reflect the damage. Here are the key details. To qualify, the damage needs to exceed $10,000, and you must file a claim within 12 months. Once filed, we will investigate and verify the claim, determine the cost to cure, and then reduce the assessed value effective the date of the damage occurred. The reduction remains in place until the property is repaired, rebuilt, or undergoes a change in ownership. It does seem clear that we may need legislative help to ensure maximum benefits to victims, and I'm glad some legislators are here today. We look forward to talking to them about making some of those fixes. The filing of this claim also facilitates coordination.
Oh my God, Maynard!
Tax collector's office.
Good morning, Igloo.
Taxpayers who pay property
welcome in, my friend.
Directly, that is not through an impound account.
We've had a wild morning over here on the Troll Patrol. A lot of news going on
without incurring penalties or interest.
On this special edition.
County partners to identify impact.
That news be doing a lot of shit this morning.
Homeowners and
on a
businesses
Friday.
Process for all claims. We aim to do that, process them as quickly as possible. Once the tax roll is updated, the auditor controller will recalculate the taxes. If you're
also going on right now, the
or if taxes remain owed, and adjust.
Supreme Court hearing the case on the TikTok ban.
Staff who's here has handed.
Would you like to check in with the Supreme Court?
I did want to also emphasize that you should not pay.
Gonna take a live look at Broadway in Nashville, Tennessee, where the snow and ice storm has started. Apparently not accumulations. Not going to reach the accumulations that weather services had predicted. That is Bridgestone Arena. I'm very familiar with Nashville. I've been there dozens of times. Walked the streets of Broadway so many times. There's so many concert venues in Nashville that I've been to. The Ryman just down the street from Bridgestone Arena. I've seen Iron Maiden, Roger Waters, Guns N' Roses. Fuck. I've seen SmackDown. That's where the bars are. This is like Garth Brooks's Honky Tonk and Brantley Gilbert's blah blah blah. This is the fucking street. I believe it's more what you would call a wintry mix. You can kind of see the flurries there. You can see them kind of bouncing up, but it is, as I mentioned earlier, the temperatures all around the region are around freezing. So in the range of 26 to 34. So if it's just bouncing around in that range, you get more of a wintry mix, and that's even worse. Especially for, once again, people in the South don't know how to fucking drive in the snow. They don't know how to fucking drive, period. But they don't know how to fucking drive in the snow. I say this from experience. Yes, I've frozen my ass off in Nashville. I've also sweltered in Nashville. Fucking love the city. It's one of my favorite cities, actually. I don't want to bash on it too much. I've had a hell of a lot of fun in Nashville. There's dumbass drivers everywhere. I hate to be, you know, dismissive of the fact that there are dumbasses everywhere.
Content.
TikTok versus Garland and Fireball versus Garland.
No, I'll save it for the SG.
Justice Kagan. Justice Gorsuch. Justice Kavanaugh. Justice Jackson.
One quick question. You repeatedly say that, from your perspective, the government's motivation is that the content might be too anti-American or too pro-China, et cetera. So that's why you think this is a content.
No one from Memphis has any business bashing on Nashville.
If the government had articulated its rationale as saying, you know, our motivation is to limit foreign interference.
Their biggest landmark is a goddamn Bass Pro Shop.
Social media platform.
Come the fuck on.
Isn't that a different motivation from the standpoint of how we characterize this?
I agree, but then the question I would ask if the government said that, which I think kind of in the reply brief, maybe the government does say that, is that how on earth are you then serving a national security interest? You know, if all you're doing is just saying, we don't like a foreign country rearranging cat and dance videos, like it's hard to come in and make a national security argument. So the only way you get to national security, which is the government's own argument, is to look at the substance that's being rearranged and say, we don't like the way the substance is going to be rearranged and curated differently.
Thank you.
Thank you, counsel.
I'm sorry, colleague.
General Prelager.
Also, I love your avatar.
The Chinese government's control of TikTok poses a grave threat to national security. No one disputes that the PRC seeks to undermine U.S. interests by amassing vast quantities of sensitive data about Americans and by engaging in covert influence operations. And no one disputes that the PRC pursues those goals by compelling companies like ByteDance to secretly turn over data and carry out PRC directives. Those realities mean that the Chinese government could weaponize TikTok at any time to harm the United States. TikTok collects unprecedented amounts of personal data, and as Justice Sotomayor noted, it's not just about the 170 million American users, but also about their non-user contacts who might not even be engaging with the platform.
Oh my
that
God,
data would be incredibly valuable to the PRC. For years, the Chinese government has sought to build detailed profiles about Americans, where we live and work, who our friends and coworkers are, what our interests are.
How often I jack off.
TikTok's immense data set would give the PRC a powerful tool.
5-7 times a day.
Recruitment and espionage. On top of that, the Chinese government's control over TikTok gives it a potent weapon for covert influence operations. And my friends are wrong to suggest that Congress was seeking to suppress specific types of content or specific types of viewpoints. Instead, the national security
I hate TikTok.
from the very fact of a foreign adversary's capacity
Follow me on TikTok at JustinFREAKIN.
to advance its geopolitical goals in whatever form that.
You can now post hour-long videos.
The act addresses the threat of foreign adversary control with laser-like focus. It requires only divestiture of TikTok to prevent Chinese government control. And that divestiture remedy follows a long tradition of barring foreign control of U.S. communications
like that's the.
and other critical.
I agree with the arguments they're making. It's just I don't like the application of them specifically to TikTok as opposed to all the other fucking tech companies. Google, Facebook specifically, but all of them do it.
But the important thing to recognize is that
I have long been an advocate for a digital bill of rights,
once TikTok is freed from
where our digital footprint is protected and our data is ours. Companies can't mine it for money without paying us something for it.
welcome the court's questions.
And it has to be an opt-in kind of deal.
Content manipulation by a non-U.S. company as opposed to a U.S. company.
Well, to be fair, TikTok is far more effective than our military.
Yes, and I think the important thing to recognize is that the act here is targeting covert content manipulation by a foreign adversary nation. Now, I understand my friends to say—
What difference does that make?
The difference is that there is no protected First Amendment right for a foreign adversary.
Well, at least if they're going to sell it, they need to pay you for it.
The difference between covert—
Because they're making all kinds of money off of it.
That Congress's concern with the covert operation was that a foreign adversary could effectively weaponize this platform behind the scenes.
So it'd work a lot like, equity in your house.
Number of geopolitical
and your digital because they're fucking all these companies are making fucking bukus of money off of your data.
Adversary to simply try to get Americans arguing with one another to create chaos and distraction in order to weaken the United States as a general matter and distract from—
Yeah, exactly. We control the NSA, but we're worried about somebody getting your data.
Covert, though. I mean, does covert just mean it's hard to figure out how the algorithm works? Because we could say that about every algorithm.
No, the covert nature of it comes from the fact that it's not apparent that the PRC is the one behind the scenes pulling the strings here.
Is that Kagan?
Exactly what content is going to be made to appear on the site. And another way that the
It's just because we don't know that China's behind it? That's what covert—
Libertad. Yeah, that was Kagan.
It doesn't have anything to do with the difficulty of figuring out what the algorithm is doing. It's just because people don't know that China is pulling the strings. That's what covert means?
What it means is that Americans are on this platform thinking showing that they are speaking to one another, and this recommendation engine that is apparently so valuable is organically directing their speech to each other. And what is covert is that the PRC...
Yes, and I do want laws that means that the algorithm has to be
in the system.
neutral.
That's all it means that, like, people don't know that China's behind it. Like, everybody now knows that China is behind it.
No, but it's the specific content that's being manipulated would be unapparent. And so I think
that's true of every search engine. I mean, you can take any of these algorithms, whether it's X or whether it's, you know, you name it. What are the
Hagen is awesome.
I mean, none of these are apparent, right? You get what you get, and you think that's puzzling, and it's all a little bit of a black box. So you can't just mean it's a black box, it's covert. They're all black boxes. And if you just mean what's covert is the fact that there's China behind it, I mean, honestly, really, like, everybody does know now that there's China behind it. So I just don't get what this covert word does for you.
I think the problem with just saying, as a general matter, China has this...
Apparently, Putin has already reached out to Trump, and a meeting is in the works.
It doesn't put anyone on notice.
Possible that
influence operation is actually...
Russia will be Trump's first trip abroad as president.
From the operation.
And what does that say?
Pretty paternalistic point of view. I mean, don't we normally assume that the best remedy for problematic speech is counter speech? And you know, TikTok says it could even live with a disclaimer on its website saying this can be covertly manipulated by China. In case anybody
Chief Justice Neil Gorsuch
after today,
I'm sorry, not Chief,
about that possibility. So
Roberts is the Chief Justice. My bad.
Saying
Neil,
that won't work because
that won't work because it is such a generic, generalized
Neil Gorsuch, the first Trump appointment,
reasonably on notice about when it's actually happening. And the example I've been thinking about is
argument is that the average American won't be able to figure out that the cat feed he's getting on TikTok could be manipulated, even though there's a disclosure saying it could be manipulated.
But imagine if you walked into a store and it had a sign that said, 1 of 1 million products in this store causes cancer. That is not going to put you on notice about what product is actually jeopardizing your health. And I think that's roughly equivalent to the type of disclosure they're contemplating here. They brought up the
does she pull off the bangs?
There you have to disclose the actual content.
Or should she ditch the bangs?
Wouldn't that be true for all social media companies, for all content? I mean, every editor, every newspaper,
I think she pulls it off.
Editorial room makes decisions about what it's going to run and how it's going to say it, and every algorithm has preferences, whether it's domestic or foreign, and nobody really knows exactly when those editorial decisions are being made or how, but they're generally aware, and we think that's enough.
I think, though, that there is a real risk that when a foreign adversary has control of that kind of mechanism and a speech platform in the United States, it could weaponize that platform to harm United States interests.
How? Weaponize it how?
PRC flexes this muscle is to suppress speech.
General, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we're not arguing about the compelling interest. We're arguing about the tailoring.
Right. And so I guess what I would say, you began by saying the cure for concerning speech is counter speech. Here,
apparently the Cure's new album is pretty damn good.
Concerned about any particular subject or any particular viewpoint. It wanted to close off a capability of a foreign government. But in any event, it's very hard to engage in counter speech when you don't know because someone is secretly manipulating the platform behind the scenes. And in particular, what the PRC has the capability to do is simply silence American voices.
Wouldn't the same thing be true with a newspaper owned by a foreign company and a foreign government? You wouldn't know when it's exercising editorial discretion about this article or that article or how it's doing it, so maybe we just need to shut down the Oxford University Press in America.
Yeah.
Or you pick it, any other foreign-owned Politico, I was told today, is owned by Germany.
So
that would all be okay on your theory, so long as it designates that country a foreign.
I mean, we discriminate against RT already.
To articulate bright line rules to govern all kinds of hypothetical situations.
I am testing your argument.
Yes, and what I want to acknowledge is that sometimes the court has recognized that a speaker-based preference might reflect a content-based preference. And in the context of ownership of a newspaper, for example, in part because a newspaper is a one-way channel of communication and is generally understood to represent to some extent its publisher's views, maybe the court would more readily infer that a regulation targeting that is actually aiming to target content. But I don't think the court could draw the same conclusion here.
I'm not talking about the compelling interest or any of that. I'm talking about the tailoring. And you're saying we have no alternative but to stop this speech altogether. We can't rely on disclosure. But you say that wouldn't apply to Politico or to the Oxford University Press because?
In the circumstance where you have a newspaper that is understood.
This is the first time I've been up in the AM in forever. I mean,
disclosure would be a more adequate remedy there because it's not just holding it.
Oh God, it is
between other people. I think social media platforms do raise distinct interests.
It is fucking snowing.
Because what people think when they're engaging with TikTok is that it's organically feeding them videos.
And it is.
Engine. And if actually China is behind the scenes engaging in this kind of covert operation, it does prevent a distinct national security risk. Of course, the other big difference with the newspaper is it's not likely to be collecting sensitive personal information about 170 million plus people and then having the capacity to send that back to a foreign.
It's snowing as hard as I thought it was, and it's very thin.
I was just going to say, did I understand you to say a few minutes ago?
Doesn't look like it's sticking either.
Problem that ByteDance might be through TikTok trying to get Americans to argue with each other?
That it might be just trying to foment
if they do, I say they're winning.
Or dissent. That might very well be true, Mr. Chief Justice. And I think the point I'm trying to make.
Oh, I think we would argue with each other without TikTok.
For every opportunity it has to weaken the United States and to try to threaten our national security. And if it has.
Okay, so she is the Solicitor General for the United States.
Exactly how
she may not believe that
our interests.
TikTok should be banned, but she has to take the case.
The data of these American users, which would be of a piece
that the DOJ is bringing.
Has already undertaken to breach our laws, hack OPM, for example, and exfiltrate the background files and security clearances of 20 million government employees, the breach of Equifax.
I think she's in a tough spot because I think she's arguing against something that is fundamentally unconstitutional.
Appetite to get its hands on as much information about Americans as possible, and that creates a potent weapon here because the PRC could command that ByteDance comply with any request it gives to obtain
the bang scream Karen
subsidiary.
Thank you.
Suppose that TikTok had no connection whatsoever with any foreign government. It was owned instead by an immensely rich multinational corporation, and Congress.
What about an individual?
This multinational corporation really has it in for the United States and is going to use this extremely popular platform to do everything it can to undermine the United States in all the ways in which you think that TikTok may pursue at the direction of the PRC. Would that be the same case?
I think there would be a first-order question of whether the multinational corporation itself has First Amendment rights.
All right, it's an American corporation.
So if it were an American corporation, I think that, and Congress disagreed with the viewpoints or
like Meta,
the corporation would display, obviously that's a direct regulation of protected speech and it would trigger strict scrutiny. I think that's different in kind from what Congress was worried about here, which was not regulating speech as such, but instead regulating foreign adversary control.
So your argument depends on the fact that what is at bottom here.
I'm not high enough for this shit.
People's Republic of China using TikTok. That's what your argument depends on. If this were an American corporation, it'd be an entirely different thing.
Exactly. And the reason we know the statute is different is because all of the same speech that's happening on TikTok could happen post-divestiture. The Act doesn't regulate that at all. So it's not saying you can't have pro-China speech, you can't have anti-American speech. It's not regulating the algorithm. TikTok, if it were able to do so, could use precisely the same algorithm to display the same content by the same users. All the Act is doing is trying to surgically remove the ability of a foreign adversary.
You guys are into this shit.
Data and to be able to exercise control over.
If I streamed more during the day, if I did the Troll Patrol today,
due to respond to
TPT
argument about the rights of Americans.
We just jumped around from press conferences and
or anyone else
congressional hearings and Supreme Court hearings and
that
live shots of this and that. Would you guys be into that?
that information in the Lamont sense.
Yes, so I think that Lamont...
It's a lot of news for a Friday.
...a right of American listeners to receive information, and if Congress is directly regulating that based on disagreement with the speech that's being sent into this country, that's obviously going to trigger heightened scrutiny under the First Amendment. But here...
in a perverted way.
...to be asserting a different type of interest, because what Congress was safeguarding against was not the ability of TikTok to continue to operate or the users to post content. It was focused only on foreign adversary control. And so the users would have to demonstrate that
I really enjoy being on at 8 p.m.
right to post on a platform that's
I've been toying with the idea of being on at different times.
threaten our nation's security by gathering data on tens or hundreds of millions of Americans.
I like being like, you know, at the end of the day, everything's kind of already settled down.
I was trying to
we might get some police chases or a manhunt. That's pretty cool.
What I came up with.
When we do debates,
Whether
we're already on for the debates.
You know, in the
election coverage and shit like that.
About the Soviet Union and what the Soviet Union was doing in this country. And the Communist Party of the United States at that time was integrally attached to the...
Well, if I was doing it, it would be two different shows, I guess.
Essentially a Soviet operation, right?
During the day, we'd just be kind of free-balling like this, going back and forth between shit that's happening live.
But it has to divest.
And then I would do the news rundown the way I do at the end of the day.
From any international ties that it has. Do you think that would have been...
That doesn't leave me an awful lot of time to run my business, though.
Yes. Yes, it would have been fine. It's just like this case. Or if the answer is no, why is it not like this case?
So I guess I think I would need to know more information about how the international organization is able to exercise control over the American affiliate. And if it had the capacity, for example, to, in an unqualified fashion, gather data from that affiliate in a way that was going to jeopardize our nation's security.
Well, I'm talking more about sort of the content. Let's put the data collection piece of this aside, which is...
I feel like that's the most significant thing.
Pertinent to my 1950s analog. But, you know, very concerned about the kind of speech that the Communist Party was making in the United States. And it turns out that that content was pretty well scripted someplace else.
I think if it was specifically a concern about the content, then that would trigger heightened scrutiny under the First Amendment. We're not trying to run away from that principle here. Instead, we're making, I think, a narrower argument.
Well, then I think that you're a little bit, I think you've just given your thing away, because content manipulation is a content-based rationale. We think that this foreign government is going to manipulate content in a way that will that concerns us and may very well affect our national security interests. Well, that's exactly what they thought about Communist Party speech in the 1950s, which was being scripted in large part by international organizations or directly by the Soviet Union.
I disagree that the concern with covert content manipulation is itself content-based, or that it looks anything like the kinds of laws this court has previously said are content-based. The court most recently in City of Austin...
Yeah, they said the data has been, like, sequestered.
When Congress is setting out to discriminate against particular...
And China doesn't actually have access, and it is overseen by a
the law is
third party.
In the space that involves content in some way. You have to have this motive by Congress to actually want to suppress speech on certain topics or certain viewpoints. Here, Congress just wants to...
The kitty has noticed it's snowing.
...altogether, and all of the same speech could continue to happen on the platform. It's like patching up a backdoor vulnerability that the PRC has that we can't...
One of them, the other two are asleep.
...see around all the corners to imagine how it could use it against our interests, but we know the PRC will do whatever it can to try.
And the other is amazed.
From imputing to Congress some motive to specifically get more speech on certain topics or with certain viewpoints. This law was passed by broad bipartisan majorities in both houses of Congress, and our legislators don't always agree on everything. I think it's unlikely that all of them had exactly the same views about what's good content on TikTok or what are good viewpoints.
I mean, like, once again, like, I agree with her in theory.
That it is a grave threat to...
I don't like the narrow application of her
behind the scenes be controlling how
argument to one platform.
Why doesn't this act classify on the basis of speaker?
I do think that when it comes to the PRC and ByteDance, you could treat this as a speaker-based restriction.
And aren't speaker-based restrictions...
Yeah, I can't imagine that tech lobbying on Google, Facebook's behalf. I really think Google wanted to buy TikTok.
Flexible rule that any time you are regulating certain speakers,
I think they all wanted to buy TikTok, but Google specifically.
said it warrants closer consideration. And here, if you look at the U.S. speakers, TikTok.
I also heard that Apple was very interested
None
in
of
it.
them are being regulated in a way that suggests its disagreement with their content. It's all about what our foreign adversary is doing.
It's hard for me to think of situations. Maybe they exist where our classification.
I mean, if the argument is that we're concerned about what companies are doing with our data,
somebody says, Joe,
and how they can manipulate us with content, I absolutely agree.
We don't know what he's going to say tomorrow.
And that we need a law that across the board makes sure that algorithms are neutral.
Because Joe is a bad person.
And that they're not using them to bombard us with advertisements. I want to see what my fucking friends are posting.
And the reason for that, again, is this is a sophisticated adversary nation, and we can't just simplistically say,
I want to see what the groups I'm in are saying.
China content on this app. As Chief Judge Srinivasan,
stop showing me fucking targeted ads all the time.
Create some kind of false flag operation.
And I should, if
China content, not
you want to offer that service, I should have to opt into it.
Some trumped up justification for a military or
yeah, I want to see targeted ads about blah 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 services.
Concerned with trying to ward off that capability.
I think I am on Mastodon. I don't understand it.
But we know it, Joe, is bad.
Because I think the better classification is to recognize that what we're trying to prevent
I'm everywhere.
the specific subject matter, the specific viewpoints, but the technical capability of a foreign adversary nation to use a communication.
I mean, I'm getting old. I don't understand a lot of things.
How covert content manipulation isn't content-based restriction.
So again,
the word,
it's because
it's kind of hard to avoid the word.
Yeah, but I'm everywhere. I'm on platforms you've never fucking heard of. Throwing my content out there.
It's related to content, but
just into the void.
Congress seeking to set out in advance what kind of speech we should have reflecting certain.
You know, when I make those little 1-minute videos, the clips of the Troll Patrol or the freaking newses,
foreign adversary nation.
I upload them to like 15 platforms.
This was content based. All that.
It's a lot of work.
Scrutiny, and as the D.C. Circuit recognized here, we think that this law serves compelling national security.
I've got a browser that opens with everything that I post to, and I just go one by one.
A long-standing
putting it in there.
History and tradition of trying to prevent foreign control.
And then we get to the question whether there's a less restrictive means. I get that, and whether disclosure might suffice. On the data,
I am not on Feet Finder, but I am on FetLife.
Make the argument that.
And I'm pretty sure I'm JustinFREAKIN on there, so hey,
TikTok US
if you wanna
sharing data with anyone, on pains of penalties that would put people in prison and shut the company down in the future, as the government did, for example, with Arthur Andersen. Why?
I'm pretty sure that like I'm JustinFREAKIN on everything. Like if I subscribe to someone's OnlyFans, they see that I'm JustinFREAKIN.
ByteDance and TikTok leading up to.
I go to my free cams.
4 years, an extensive conversation about what limitations.
I'm JustinFREAKIN.
Americans' data.
You click on my profile and I got all the links to my Twitch and my YouTube.
Prevent the U.S. subsidiary from sharing data with the corporate parent. And the reason for that sounds in the technological features of this application. I think there can be no reasonable.
I ain't lying, by the way.
Source code development and the maintenance of this algorithm.
I'm on Pornhub as just
sought to try to control export restrictions with respect to the algorithm. And what that means is you need substantial data flows between the companies in order to continue to modify that algorithm, refine it, and so forth. So I don't think that that was.
I think Hitler did some good things
with respect to the proposed national security agreement that was insufficient in protecting our data privacy and security concerns.
That didn't come across.
I'm only operating on a couple hours of sleep.
If we are in the world of data protection, as opposed to content control, I think it's hard to get around the post-divestiture provision that says you can't do business with them on the algorithm, because that very much is content-based. It's a content-based restriction. But what you're saying is you can't do it for a data control reason, meaning that you can't really run their algorithm without sharing the very data that we are.
People argue with me on Twitter and shit, and I'll link them to the show. They're like, why would I watch your stupid show? I was like, you want to argue with me? This is the place to do it. This is where it's most fun.
Definition of the accepted data is at JA 239 to 240, and it references categories of information that would, of necessity, technological necessity and business necessity, have to flow back to China. And the relevant categories are...
Oh, wow, I take that back about it not sticking. Holy shit.
Because it's eye-opening. It is at the Court of Appeals sealed appendix 249 to 252 and 254. If you look at that information, it was a wealth of data about Americans that was going to have to go back to China in order for the platform to just continue its basic operations. And there's a legitimate commercial justification for that, but it creates this gaping vulnerability in the system because once that data is in China...
Well, we've already got like an inch out there.
Turn it over and keep that assistance secret. And the one final point on this is that ByteDance was not a trusted partner here. It wasn't a company that the United States could simply expect to comply with any requirements in good faith.
So that happened.
There was actual factual evidence to show that even during a period of time when the company was representing that it had walled off the U.S. data and it was protected, there was a well-publicized incident where ByteDance surveilled U.S. journalists using their location data. This is the protected U.S.
I think most people were disappointed with about an inch.
Information from the company to those journalists.
General, you want us to look at that, and you get to look at it, but your friends on the other side don't get to look at it. That doesn't seem fair.
That's the sealed appendix, Mr. Chief Justice, so it's their information. They can look at it. It's just under seal to protect their proprietary business information.
General, so I want to go back to the discussion about content discrimination, and we're going to shut Joe up. Here, it seems to me like we are saying to ByteDance, we want to shut you up. And so let's say that I think that that is content discrimination based on...
I mean, Joe does need to shut the fuck up.
If I think that, tell me if I have to conclude that it is also speaker-based discrimination and content-based discrimination for TikTok.
No, it is not. And the reason for that is because it would be an...
I like the way she says TikTok.
...that an entity outside the United States that can't assert its own First Amendment rights can somehow manufacture that right through the expediency of forming a U.S. subsidiary, especially one that it wholly controls.
So you don't have to stand on that argument that you were having.
Okay, we're going to check back in with... Remember that structure that we saw on fire in L.A.? Currently,
some people so far know
looks contained,
but apparently apartment unit 4 absolutely destroyed. You can see it there in the front of the building. So this again doesn't appear to be related to any of the brush fires. It's
just a random fire.
The Palisades fire to the south, as Venice is to the south of Pacific Palisades, but this looks like this may have just started inside of that apartment. And LA City firefighters, well, they got to cover apartment fires too, in addition to that still burning brush fire in the hills north of the Palisades. That's it here from the desk. Send it back to you.
Yeah, but you wouldn't want that apartment fire to spread
have gone up year
in this situation.
Things like this. Mark, thank you. The time right now is 9:12. Still to come as devastating wildfires sweep through LA County. Navigating insurance claims becomes a crucial step. We're going to speak with an
Yeah, really, the news is all about property, aren't they?
Security.
Well,
really highlighting looting, talk about your insurance claims.
January rainfall. With that not in our extended forecast, the question then turns to when does the wind return, which will bump up the fire danger once again.
Apparently later on in the afternoon.
With the answer being yes, we'll have that coming up.
Well, we say it's all about private property until, like, I made some sort of post about intellectual property, and one of the libertarians piped up to say that intellectual property isn't real, and I'm like, you know, you just said that to a content creator. Like, literally the only thing I do, if anyone is unaware, like, my actual job is video editor. I make videos for people. Even some right-wing propaganda. Merlin, you weren't here for the show last night. Somebody posted it in my chat at my request. Get me the CEO of State Farm. It's insane though. Like, intellectual property isn't a thing. No, Justin, your very existence, your videos, but you can't own that shit. That doesn't belong to you. No, you can't sell stock photos. You can't sell stock video. Weird. Libertarians are so fucked up. And like, he's like, government impedes a free market. And I'm like, absent a government to protect your property and your rights, you're just at the whim of whoever is the strongest or has the most guns. You want like a feudalism, and I definitely don't want that. I think a broken government that is somewhat in the vein of a republic that protects rights is better than a type of feudalism. Corporations have bought our government, and then libertarians point to that to say that our government doesn't work. I'm like, no, you just have to get money out of politics. Government absolutely can work. I even bring, like, fucking, I'm from Eastern Kentucky. My family used to get flooded every like 3 to 6 years, and the government came in. The Army Corps of Engineers rerouted the fucking river around my hometown. Like one of the third largest engineering projects ever in the world. And they fixed the flooding problem. Oh my God, government. I've seen, and I'm a big fan of the Army Corps of Engineers. They used to do a lot of fucking amazing work. You don't exactly hear about the work they do anymore. I'm sure they're still out there. They do a lot of shit like helping people build berms for floods, rerouting creeks and rivers and shit, dams. That's Army Corps of Engineers. Not to mention that, you know, it was the government reinvesting in the late 80s and the 90s the money that the coal industry had sucked out of my region back into our schools. I went to a fucking nice school for coming from the boondocks of eastern goddamn Kentucky. And it was called the coal severance package that Democrats were actually able to negotiate that brought some of the money that was robbed from my region back to us. They blew up spaces between the mountains and built state highways so that we were able to actually have access to commerce. I grew up at a time that it took like an hour and a half to get to my grandparents' house from where we lived, and you had to go up a 2-lane windy road up a mountain, and it was scary as fuck. That drive as an adult for me was 20 minutes. 20 fucking minutes to go to the area where my grandparents lived when I was a kid. They used to take us an hour and a half for Christmas. Governments can do some wonderful things when you fund them and you have people that properly allocate the funds. Quesadilla, good morning. We're currently looking at a live shot of Nashville. This is Broadway in Nashville where snow is falling. The start of what is supposed to be a historic storm. Go back to the weather report in California.
Your wind advisories and warnings are finished. The mountains, the San Jacintos between you and Palm Springs, there's still a high wind warning. And the red flag warning expires at 6 o'clock this evening. I don't think we'll have one.
Light one up, tip one back is a weird thing to say to people.
Coming up on Sunday. Just a brief.
When it's barely noon on the East Coast and still morning time.
Fire danger.
Every other time zone to the people I'm talking to.
How wet was it last year? How wet was it the year before that? One of the wettest
periods.
It's
a snow day for a lot of Americans.
Followed up with virtually zero rainfall and none in the forecast.
Put some rum in your hot cocoa.
With that haze over LA County. Here's your forecast for the weekend. I'll wrap up with this, guys. We get a break from the wind tomorrow with a high of 66 in Los Angeles, but breezy to windy conditions are likely to return coming up on Sunday. Guys, back to you.
Oh, God, that's not good.
Advantage of tomorrow. Paul, thank you.
Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara is helping to protect Southern California homeowners.
He issued a mandatory one-year moratorium
It
on
was the insurance commissioner. That's who that dude was.
non-renew policies and zip codes affected by the fires.
This means that if you've received a non-renewal,
I just killed myself. That was a lung buster.
And January 7th, essentially 90 days, your insurance company should do the right thing and retain you as a valued policyholder. I call upon all property insurance companies to pause these non-renewals and cancellations and provide essential stability for our communities, allowing consumers to focus on what's important at the moment, their safety and recovery.
Experts say insurance claims from these fires could be in the tens of billions of dollars.
I think it could hit $1 trillion. On your sides, Christine Lazar is here with tips that help.
Whoa, that's a...
It's astronomical.
Yeah, I mean, look, as I said...
I was going to say hundreds of billions was possible. I made that prediction the first night.
Lost, but the fallout to the insurance industry and all the people trying to rebuild...
Maybe not necessarily the...
...for months, years.
The claims, the insurance claims, but certainly the damage that was sustained
from the National Weather Service
is in the hundreds of billions.
135 to 150.
Whether the insurance pays that out or not. Not everybody there is insured.
A lot of money. And we want to bring in now insurance expert Carl Sussman. Carl, thank you for joining us this morning. You know, you've been doing this a long time. You're in a family of the insurance industry. In terms of scope, do you anticipate the number of claims filed?
How does this not break the insurance industry in California?
It already is unprecedented, and at this stage, we are still having most people not even aware of what the situation is with their home. They're evacuated, they're hoping for the best, but they don't even know for sure. So I think the number of claims that we've seen so far is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, how many have you heard from of your clients who have lost their home?
We have over 60 clients currently.
Fair enough, Mr. Spraw.
For their homes, and we're working.
It has been broken
in the process.
But how does this not collapse?
Is underway.
That's what I mean.
For other fires, how many would you have?
You know, a bad fire might be 3, 4, maybe 5. Wow. It just depends on where it is. There's been nothing like this, even remotely close, that I've ever experienced in my over 3 decades in doing this.
So what does this mean for our insurance market in terms of cost to insure and our ability to find coverage going forward?
Well, as you just said, Ricardo Lara just went ahead and put a moratorium in place for the industry. So if you're in any of the affected zip codes or the zip codes that directly surround the area,
the car was still plugged in,
fires, then you can't be non-renewed. And even if your policy is canceled for, say, non-payment, the industry is supposed to turn around and take a payment from you if you ask and reinstate your policy as it is. As a side, be sure if you need that, reach out to the carrier directly, reach out to your agent or broker, ask for assistance. They're going to do the right thing, but they need to be told to do it. They're not going to automatically just keep policies in force if they've lapsed or if they haven't been paid. You have to ask them to do it.
And we know we've got this sustainable insurance strategy, which the goal of that is
do you have any California
insurance coverage
viewers that are affected by the fires? In touch with your
rates,
insurers.
Are we going to see higher rates?
And what the fuck are you doing watching me right now?
Sustainable insurance strategy, and thank goodness it got put into law before this happened. We're going to see sort of a reshuffling in areas that are higher risk for fire. We're going to see premiums reflect that and be higher, and areas that are in lower risk for fire significantly lower than they used to be before, and certainly in comparison to what people are paying in the higher risk areas.
Now, we know State Farm recently canceled over 90,000 policies, a lot of those, a majority of those in the Palisades. So does that mean that we could have some of these homes that have burned down either uninsured or even, let's say they've owned it?
They are not out of the woods yet.
Completely, uninsured or underinsured.
It's possible. Actually, the State Farm's non-renewals hit the Palisades very hard. It was the
oh no, I did not even see that flash.
For non-renewals, they non-renewed 1,626 homeowners policies.
Well, I could tell you right now that insurance,
some people were not,
private insurance, is a scam.
But The people that
I don't see how State Farm has the money to. I mean, the government's going to have to bail them out, right?
Those claims, a lot of them.
There's no way they have the money to pay out all these claims.
The FAIR Plan does have resources to be able to handle this type.
And the reason they don't have the money to pay out all these claims is because they've been giving their CEOs $1 million paychecks every year.
Well, these policies are designed, if written properly, to rebuild homes. That's the whole point. The only out-of-pocket technically should be.
Let's say we had some sort of government-run
designed to rebuild
program where you
now,
paid a premium every month,
and
nobody put their grubby hands on it. And then when disaster like this happens,
coverage. Can the program afford all of these claims?
Fortunately, the California...
It's no problem to pay it out. Doesn't that seem like a much better system than...
The last figure was about $250 million. They have at last...
Given millions of dollars to CEOs to do fuck all of what exactly?
We assume that everything is a total loss in the Palisades, and we can certainly hope that's not the case. They don't have the liquidity today. However, they do have reinsurance that we have to add to that liquidity, and then we have the ability for them to take out bonds if they need it. And as a last resort,
I mean, I can't see how like State Farm isn't going to go to the government and be like, "Hey, we need some sort of subsidy."
California to be able to pick up if they don't have.
And it's getting tiring of all these companies having to go to the government and be like, "Hey, we need a subsidy to stay afloat."
Yeah, and also we should just mention really quickly that Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara mentioned the FAIR Plan, saying that the maximum you can get hasn't changed in like 3 decades, and he's working on that too. So some good change may come out of this as well. Carl, thanks.
Holy shit!
Thanks, Christine.
Jamie and Rudabeh, back to you.
Thank you. A lot of when people actually are even.
I was figuring that I would not see as much snow as they were predicting. It's currently 29 degrees here.
Jose Andres, once again at the forefront of disaster relief, bringing his humanitarian spirit to Southern California.
Love him. Plus, the YMCA is stepping up to support the wildfire victims.
My goddamn feet are cold as shit. Back to Atlanta.
System that no one's excited about because all of the fun stuff has pretty much happened, and if it is
the fun stuff
starting to wane, and I'm talking about ongoing snowfall, and that's what you'll find across the far northern tier of the state. Then you can see here in the pink a wintry mix, mostly made up of sleet, but there could be some pockets of freezing rain, and then there's a generous swath of dry air that's trying to sneak in, and where there is
I am much further north.
It's crept above 32 degrees. You're finding rain, especially as you go out to Lake Country, Jasper, Putnam counties, also Greene County getting in on some light but chilly showers at this point. And so we've been talking about these precipitation types, and they really are going to make the difference not only in the here but in what's to come. So I want to go ahead and say, okay, the snow is coming to an end, but there are 3 other types I'm most concerned about. Yes, there's a window for sleet. Sleet's not really problematic. However, when we talk about rain and freezing rain oftentimes results in ice developing on surfaces that are at or below freezing, and then you also have the threat for rain. And you're saying, why are you calling rain a threat? Well, the temperature may rise above freezing, 33, 34 degrees over the next few hours, but here's the deal. The temperature is coming back down tonight.
My friends on the East Coast, please be careful out there.
Or if it fell as snow, it has the
my friends in the
we're not talking
pretty much all the fucking country, right? Like fucking Texas got snow.
Contact becoming ice. We're talking about
there's snow. I mean, like you people up in Minnesota, like fucking you're used to it.
Freezing overnight, creating the issue for black ice. Alex Forbes is standing by to really pinpoint that window of time and the locations that we're specifically looking at.
I mean, like be careful, yes.
Continue through the remainder of today, but that will take us into the first part of the weekend. Alex?
Yeah, and Jonathan, look, I mean,
people up in the Northeast
could take us into next week, right? We're talking about everything that's on the ground being on the ground, melting a little bit, a little refreeze.
Ice is a bitch. That is what everybody needs to be
Let's start with the forecast
on the lookout for. If you do not have to drive,
at times we're seeing a low.
Please don't go out
as we speak.
I know it's Friday night and all.
Expected to last. Take a look at the forecast model now into the afternoon. We do really see that freezing rain build back in, and as it falls, it will be freezing on contact. It is rain, so it falls through that part of the air that's warmer and then freezes when it reaches the ground. There's 7 o'clock tonight, and then as we work our way into the evening hours, that's when the precipitation will take.
That's what's going on in Hotlanta. Feeling awfully chilly. Live look at Nashville. Nowhere near what we're getting right here. Warlord. Good afternoon, my friend. Or good evening for you. What is it, about 5, 6 o'clock? Something like that? It's about supper time. You woke up. You sleep all day? What the hell? Oh God, this has been like the busiest news day ever. Okay, we covered a press conference with the Prime Minister of the Denmark, and whatever the president, Prime Minister of Greenland is. We heard Trump speak. He rambled for about 20 minutes as he was sentenced earlier today. We've got snowstorms in the south, fire still going on in California. This is the Supreme Court arguments on the banning of TikTok.
That undergird this.
We had the swearing or the inauguration of Nicolas Maduro.
I wanted to make to be responsive to a few points that my friends have touched on.
It's been a busy fucking morning.
U.S. has the ability to alter this algorithm, whether divestiture is feasible, how ByteDance has manipulated the platform in the past.
Oh, Alec Baldwin is suing the sheriff and
that TikTok U.S. might engage
prosecutors in the Rust case.
To
sounded very Trumpian.
U.S. audience. The thing we're worried about is happening long before that over in China, where ByteDance is developing the source code, creating the basic backbone and functioning of the system, and is then blasting out the...
I had not heard about the Venezuelan opposition leader kidnapped. One of the prominent officials in the party had held a protest yesterday and was detained but had been released.
PRC access.
That was the latest update I got.
Feasibility of divestiture.
But I have not...
It would have been impossible to do this
I have not
in 270 days.
Checked other news other than like what we've been watching live this morning.
We just saw Elon Musk buy X or Twitter in about 6 months from offer to completion. And even with respect to this particular company, I think my friends are not well positioned to complain about the timeline because they've been on notice since 2020 that unless they could satisfy the federal government's national security concerns, divestiture might be required. But in any event, I don't think that the court should fault Congress for trying to balance competing interests here in making
I think she pulls off bangs.
And trying to preserve access to the platform for Americans while taking steps to...
Apparently the chat thinks I'm in the minority on that one.
Finally, with respect to the question of whether ByteDance has taken action on the PRC's demands, there is evidence in the record that Congress consulted to demonstrate that outside of China, ByteDance has taken action to misappropriate data at the PRC's request. That included efforts to track dissidents in Hong Kong, protesters there, to track Uyghurs in China itself. We know that ByteDance has misappropriated U.S. data with respect to surveilling of U.S.
I believe that.
And there was evidence in the record reinforcing the
Lenny, good morning.
ByteDance has
good afternoon.
PRC to undertake efforts to censor content and manipulate the platform at the behest of the Chinese government. So I don't think there is a factual basis to dispute the record.
I like how you always use greetings.
If the court
not time sensitive.
General, if I understood correctly, under President
I started using "Have a great freaking day" for the freaking news.
Order requiring divestiture, correct?
That's right.
And this
also found liable for business fraud. Also found liable for rape.
As a result of him
still out on bail for a couple $100,000 in Georgia. You are absolutely right,
A bipartisan.
And good afternoon or morning to you.
Yes, that's right.
I
love that you announce yourself. I usually do it with emotes.
Should not enforce the law.
I usually like to come in with the pride flag.
Has prohibited a certain action.
With the troll with the rainbow hair.
Would choose to ignore enforcement on any assurance other than the change in that law. But putting that aside, on the 19th, if it doesn't shut down, there is a violation of law, correct?
Yes.
And I swear to God,
What the new president doesn't change that reality for these companies.
the Sotomayor kicks the bucket in the next 4 years.
Assuming that they violated it that day and later continue to violate it.
That's going to happen, isn't it?
Statute of limitations exists for a civil violation.
That's exactly what's going to fucking happen.
Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. A rebuttal?
And Trump will get to pick yet another
points
replacement for a liberal justice.
This law would fail whether you applied intermediate scrutiny or strict scrutiny. I'd like to begin with the least restrictive alternative, simply prohibiting TikTok Incorporated from disseminating any
Alito and Thomas are totally going to step down. They're going to retire during this term.
penalties. That is
And Trump is going to pick
a less restrictive
2 more judges that are going to be
NSA negotiations.
incredibly young, groomed by the Heritage Foundation.
That were of concern in the NSA
The Federalist Society.
were not the type of technical data that she's talking about. The NSA did allow certain types of
Sotomayor is going to kick the
data to
bucket.
go back and forth, but that wasn't anybody's concern. And as we say in page 23 of our briefs, they simply cut off the negotiations without ever raising those concerns. But to be clear, if that's a concern, sweep that into the ban too. Put in that non-sensitive technical data into the ban too. We'll deal with that. It's a lot better than simply being forced to shut down. So that is most definitely a less restrictive alternative that would address data security. We talked about the under-inclusiveness and Temu and Shein, the 2 large e-commerce sites. Justice Kagan, you might have seen Temu during the Super Bowl. It was heavily advertised. It's one of the most popular e-commerce applications in the United States. It's got 70 million users.
It's a scam.
Or you were asking what they collect. This is from Joint Appendix 339 to 343, the U.S.-China Economic and Security Commission Review report. Shein relies on tracking and analyzing user data, draws on customer data.
It's like all the same people, Flash. That's why I had to correct myself.
It requests users share their data and activity from other apps, including social media. So they apparently go into your social media apps and suck up
The same fucking ghouls with the same money funding them.
They take names, addresses, and credit card information. If you look at the privacy policies on their website, they collect location data. It looks
Please
like
forgive me. I'm very,
some level
very sleepy.
So they collect massive amounts of data. Point 3. Their mere covertness argument makes no sense for the reasons that the court explored. If mere covertness were the issue, a disclosure would make perfect sense. Yet they're not concerned about mere covertness. They're concerned, as my friend suggested,
I'm concerned about meerkats.
argue with each other. Well, as far as I can tell, that's what news organizations do in this country every single day. That's what we call editorial content. That's what we call content itself. And so it's trained.
Content. All right, I like the way he says content. He said it again after I flipped over for you guys. Let's go back to LA.
So you see people are making their way around here trying to, as she was, see if they could get to their properties. Most people not being allowed in at this point. We talked with another woman who was very frustrated by this. But, these officers and the CalGuard service members that are here are doing what they're instructed, which is a hard closure to keep people out unless they are working. And we're talking about utility workers, law enforcement, reporters and photographers who are out here. We are being allowed through, but they're still checking credentials at every stop that we go to. So they're being very strict about it. The sheriff also talked about potentially enacting a curfew starting at 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. That is still in the works right now. So things are changing. There is a lot happening with the CalGuard that is out here, and we're actually seeing a couple of more of these armored vehicles that are moving our way through here.
Whoa, Flash, you just blew my mind.
Emotions, and everyone's just hoping to bear with it. Back to you guys.
Yeah, those National Guard troops too also allow the Sheriff's Department.
Mr. Sprunk, we watched
other jobs.
a story about it, and we don't know that
The destruction in the Pacific
He wasn't just
Palisades
smoking
is
pot. It
from
sounds
over.
fishy.
Fire crews continue to work to
We
continue.
feel like a bunch of people just flipped out because he was Mexican smoking pot.
He is live at the Palisades Recreation Center, where we've been seeing a lot more fire activity. Kevin?
Yeah, a little bit of good news and some new developments to share, but first...
Do we have video of him actually setting fire now?
Smoke behind me. These are all because of hotspots that are still scattered around this entire area. It may appear that most of what is around has already burned down, but this is really the tricky thing for firefighters because there are these hotspots in the ground, and as the wind starts to pick up, it can cause some issues. In fact, we saw small fires start up in each of these smoky spots that you are seeing on your screen right now. The good news is, if we could come over here, there have been firefighters here on standby as well. There is one engine that is currently sitting here waiting on standby, and that may be because also, this is an update we had from you earlier, the recreation center, as you mentioned, there was a big fire there. Hotspots were in there as well. There was a fire there previously, but it sparked up again this morning. And here's a look at it now. Firefighters were able to get water on it, and now the fire is still, it's a little bit in there, but firefighters, again, they are on standby just in case. Something we have noticed, particularly of note, especially after that press conference we just heard, we saw 2 LAPD helicopters just flying around. And at first, we were wondering if they were going somewhere specifically, but then they would just circle around different neighborhoods and go around different areas. And compared to yesterday, I have noticed a lot more law enforcement, a lot of LAPD squad cars just patrolling neighborhoods, looking, we assume, for potential looters or providing security in that way. So this is obviously a developing situation. I could tell
Providing
you,
security.
I was ready to tell you that there was no wind, because for the past couple of hours, I felt nothing. I'm feeling a little something right now. I wouldn't go as far to say it's windy, but this is still a factor here that firefighters are going to be up to facing, not just here, but really where the core of that wildfire
Well, thankfully the wind has died down. Apparently it's supposed to be really calm tomorrow.
It is distressing to see more smoke and more hot spots.
We're picking up again on Sunday, so hopefully
About an hour ago,
they can make some progress in containing these fires before the winds pick back up on Sunday.
About the false alarm emergency alerts.
We want to see Los Angeles come together.
You are deflecting from the question. You have millions of people here who get these alerts. They are ignoring them. You still have red flag warnings in effect. There is a real threat here. What is your message to your constituents?
Arrested on a probation violation.
You started this entire...
I want the residents of Los Angeles region to have faith in what we are doing 24
He was just a Mexican smoking pot, and the citizens flipped out on him.
On saying that she wanted everyone to remain united and that they are doing everything they can to get things under control.
People's emotions are running high.
Burning in Southern California continues in the air and on the ground. Assignment manager Mark Liu at the desk with a look at where the fight is now most intense. Where are they focusing their efforts, Mark?
Well, I'll tell you, it's the northern flanks of both the Palisades and the Eaton fire. And one of the websites that I've been using to keep track of all of this is actually a pretty high-tech website run in part by NASA, where you can see the infrared imaging from satellites in space of these fires as they've been burning over the last 96 hours. Now, if you come out to my screen, I'm going to show you that. What you're looking at here, it's called FIRMS, or Fire Information for Resource Management Systems. And right here you can see this is the...
But what do you, when you say propane torch?
Palisades fire here around Topanga and Tuna Canyon Park. Now, as I advance, what you're going to see here, see these red spots? These are thermal imaging detections by satellites.
I don't exactly know what that means, because that could be any number of
generated
sizes.
Central part of Pacific Palisades. This then is the next day, January 8th.
Pop bottle size, I would say that's still within the acceptable range of what somebody might be using for a dab rig.
You can see these red squares.
That'd be like the biggest somebody would have.
Very likely by the smoke and ember and heat wave that was put out by the high winds.
The weather music is kicking.
Down towards Santa Monica. And then
really dramatic.
The next day, that was yesterday, you can see that the fire lines really started to stabilize here. As you can see, it sort of broke into the...
I just don't like, I don't assume the
today,
worst.
If you look, the current status of the flank of the fire, it's really just here. This northern area and then two smaller...
No reason to assume malice when ignorance is a...
move over to
I'm fucking up the quote, aren't I?
Here as they've been doing on the northern flank all morning. I'll keep tracking this using these satellite websites and let you know where the fires are burning and how the firefight in the air is going as well. That's it here from the desk. I'll send it back to you.
All right, thanks for monitoring, Mark. Thank you. The iconic Rose Bowl has been turned into a makeshift home for people affected by the fires.
The stadium is also being used as a command center for emergency response efforts. Our reporter Barry Pintar is joining us live from the Rose
Barry
Bowl.
Pintar.
The first responders out there.
There is actually new information at this very hour on something they very much want us to convey to everyone watching at home. So first of all, yes, live at the Rose Parade, obviously here in Pasadena. You can see the mountains, exactly where the location of the Eaton Fire, Pasadena, Altadena area. Right here, though, here's what I want to say.
California Barry, indeed.
They are taking extremely good care of the firefighters here, not only in terms of sleeping. Some of the firefighters bring their own tents. They're feeding them across the way here. They have places for them to shower and clean. But the new information that the PIOs this is the PIO truck, or the public information officers, is about the big heart of everyone watching at home that wants to help with donations of either food or clothing. They very much want us to convey to those people that in terms of these places, this emergency response center, this is not the place to bring food, clothing.
A chef could have that size of a torch.
Infrastructure to deal with that. Again, one of the reasons that I show you where they're sleeping and where they're eating
somebody
is
that had, grilling equipment
all taken care of. What they are asking,
might have a torch.
They're saying they
like
understand you're watching at home, your hearts are breaking, you have a need to help. This is not the place to bring that help. What they are asking is please contact an agency that is helping the hundreds of thousands of people that are affected by these fires. They need the help. So whether it's through the Red Cross or a local agency that you know is reputable that you use, then please take that heartfelt need to help and go to them with your donations, whether they be financial, food donations, clothing donations. But in terms of bringing them here, they are very much asking you not to do that because they are not set up to handle that. They appreciate the need to give, but please give locally so that it can ultimately end up in the hands and in the homes, perhaps even new homes, of those who are drastically
Oh my God.
Reporting in Pasadena, Barry Pintar. KCAL News, back.
I lowered the threshold on all the moderation.
Day for Donald Trump,
auto moderation.
Who was convicted for falsifying business records related to a hush money
So I'm kind of surprised it got you on that one.
And the nation marked the final day of mourning for former President Jimmy Carter. Here are the touching moments as his family and distinguished guests honor his life and legacy.
Plus,
Trump didn't even stand up. Wow.
Massive loss due to the fires is pledging $1 million to help others who have lost their homes. We'll tell you who this generous person is.
They build berries different in Cali. Actually, I think I'm gonna wrap up and pass the fuck out because I'm really sleepy. Let me see who's on right now. Oh, you know who I'm gonna raid into? Huh. Oh. Send y'all fuckers over to the majority report. Go ahead, live. Oh, I can't really do that one in the middle of the day. So I gotta go with, this is what I usually do on stage. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. However, that doesn't limit your options very much at all. I'm JustinFREAKIN. We'll see you tomorrow night for classic wrestling and classic Saturday Night Live.